She died 7 times trying to save him. Tonight, he's going to remember killing her. Ceras's hand closes around the Alpha King's wrist 3 seconds before he reaches for the ceremonial blade, and the entire world stops breathing. The crowd gasps. The drums falter. Even the blood moon overhead seems to pulse brighter, angrier, like it's been waiting for this exact moment of disruption. His skin is burning hot beneath her fingers, fever hot, wrong hot, the kind of heat that comes right before a body tears itself apart from the inside. He doesn't pull away. He should. Protocol demands it. Custom demands it. The fact that she's a stranger, a nobody in a threadbare gray dress pushing through his inner circle like she has any right to touch him, demands it. But Shedrak, Alpha King of the Shadow Pine Pack, keeper of the ancient bloodline, the wolf who has survived 7 blood moons without knowing why, goes absolutely still under her touch. His eyes, dark as midnight and currently blazing with the red rim of his wolf rising to the surface, lock onto hers with an intensity that would make most people drop to their knees in submission. Ceres doesn't kneel. She's done that already. 7 times. Once for each time she begged him not to kill her right before his claws tore through her throat. Instead, she leans closer, close enough that she can smell the wild pine and smoke scent of him mixing with something else, something ancient and furious that's clawing its way up through his carefully controlled exterior. Close enough that when she whispers, only he can hear her over the confused murmuring of the pack, over the sharp intake of breath from his fiancée standing 3 feet away, with the ritual blade gleaming in her perfect hands. The words come out raw, urgent, breaking apart at the edges. You asked me to warn you, but you never listen. His pupils dilate. Just a fraction. Just enough that she knows he feels it. The impossible familiarity. The sense that this moment has happened before, that her voice is an echo of something buried so deep in his mind that it shouldn't exist at all. Get your hands off the Alpha King. The command cracks through the air like a whip, and Ceres doesn't need to look to know it's Vivian speaking. Beautiful Vivian with her golden hair braided with moonflowers and her ceremonial dress that costs more than Ceres earned in her entire life before she died. Vivian, who has orchestrated 7 perfect betrayals to keep this man alive. Vivian, who doesn't know that tonight, the script has changed. Ceres doesn't let go. Your fiancé, she whispers, her voice steady even though her heart is trying to punch through her ribs, is going to drug you in exactly 4 minutes. The blade she's holding has wolfsbane oil on the handle. When you take it for the ceremony, you'll be unconscious within seconds. They'll carry you to the southern tower, lock you in the reinforced cell, and wait for dawn. Shedrak's jaw clenches. A muscle jumps in his throat. His free hand, the one she's not holding, curls into a fist at his side, and she can see his claws starting to emerge, black and wickedly sharp. And they do this, Ceres continues, her words coming faster now because she can feel the moment slipping, can feel the guards closing in around them, can feel Vivian's fury building like a storm about to break, because if they don't, you'll kill everyone here. Including her. Including them. Including the children sleeping in the nursery 3 buildings away. The red in his eyes flares brighter. Who are you? His voice is rough, scraped raw, like the question is being torn out of him against his will. Ceres smiles, and it's the saddest thing she's ever felt cross her face. You know who I am. You've just forgotten. You forget every time. She squeezes his wrist once, feeling his pulse hammering against her palm, feeling the heat of him spreading up her arm like wildfire. But not tonight. Tonight, you're going to remember. And I need you to tell me, when you do, when you see what you've done, what you become, are you going to want to survive it? The guards reach them. Hands grab her shoulders, yank her backward, and her fingers slip from Shedrak's wrist like water. The connection breaks with an almost audible snap, and she sees it, the confusion flooding his face, the way he sways slightly like he's just woken from a dream he can't quite recall. Already the memory is trying to fade. Already his mind is trying to protect him from the truth that's clawing at the edges of his consciousness. But something is different this time. This time, when they drag her back through the crowd, when Vivian steps forward with concern painted perfectly across her features and reaches for Shedrak's hand, he doesn't take it. He's staring at Saris. Really staring. Like he's trying to see through her skin to the truth underneath. Wait. One word. Just one. But it freezes everyone in place because it's not a request. It's a command that vibrates with the full weight of his alpha power. The guard's fingers loosen on Saris's arms. The crowd holds its breath. Even the wind seems to pause, waiting. Shedrak takes a step toward her. Then another. The ceremonial cloak billows behind him, dark as spilled ink against the crimson moonlight. When he speaks again, his voice is quieter, more dangerous, the kind of soft that comes right before violence. You said I asked you to warn me. Saris nods. Her throat feels tight. When? 7 years ago. During the last blood moon. Right before you killed me the first time. The words land like stones in water, sending ripples of shock through everyone close enough to hear. Someone gasps. Someone else whispers a prayer to the moon goddess. Vivian's mask slips for just a fraction of a second, and beneath the concern, Saris sees it, panic, sharp, and immediate. But Shedrak doesn't look away from Saris. His eyes narrow, searching her face with an intensity that makes her skin prickle. And then, slowly, impossibly, his gaze drops to her throat. To the place where, 7 years ago, his claws opened her up and let her life spill out across the stones of the southern tower. There's no scar. The moon goddess doesn't let her keep scars. Every time she's resurrected, she comes back whole, unmarked, like the violence never happened. But Shedrak is staring at her throat like he can see the wound anyway. Like his hands remember the shape of it even if his mind doesn't. His voice, when it comes, is barely more than a whisper. Sparrow. The childhood nickname hits her like a physical blow. She hasn't heard it in 7 years, hasn't heard it since the night he screamed it while standing over her body, his mind already starting to fracture and forget, his wolf already retreating back into whatever prison the goddess sealed it in. No one else knows that name. No one alive. Saris's eyes burn. She blinks hard, refusing to let the tears fall, because if she cries now she'll never get through this. You remember. It's not a question. It can't be. Because the fact that he remembers really remembers, more than just fragments and feelings, means the seal is breaking. Means that tonight, the ancient thing sleeping inside him is waking up for good. Means that every carefully orchestrated betrayal, every ritual drugging, every locked door and reinforced cell won't be enough to contain what's coming. Shedrak staggers. Just slightly. Just enough that his beta, Darius, built like a mountain and twice as stubborn, lunges forward to steady him. But Shedrak waves him off, his eyes never leaving Saris's face. I dream about you, he says, and his voice cracks on the words. Every night. Every goddamn night. A girl with dark hair and eyes like storm clouds. I dream that I'm killing you, and I can't stop, and you're saying something, but I can never hear what it is, and when I wake up. He stops. His hands are shaking now. The great Alpha King, the immortal protector of the Shadow Pine Pack, is shaking like a leaf in a hurricane. When I wake up, he continues, forcing the words out, there's blood under my fingernails. And I don't know why. I never know why. Silence. Complete, suffocating silence. And then Vivian moves. Fast. Too fast. She's beside Shedrak in an instant, the blade still clutched in her hand, her beautiful face twisted with something that might be desperation or might be determination. It's hard to tell which. My king, this woman is clearly disturbed. Let us continue the ceremony. The pack is waiting. The moon. The moon can wait, Shedrak snarls, and the force of it, the raw alpha dominance crashing through the courtyard, sends everyone except Saris to their knees. Even Vivian drops, though she fights it, her body bowing under the weight of his command while her eyes blaze with fury. Shadrach closes the distance between himself and Saris in 3 long strides. Up close, he's devastating. 6.5 feet of barely leashed power, his chest heaving under the ceremonial robes, his face carved from angles and shadows that the blood moon makes sharper, more dangerous. This close, she can see the silver threading through the black of his hair, new since last year, premature, the physical cost of surviving something his mind isn't allowed to remember. He reaches out slowly, giving her time to move away. She doesn't. His fingers brush her throat, featherlight, tracing the phantom scar that only he can see. "Tell me what happens," he whispers. "Tell me what I become." And Saris, who has died 7 times for this man, who has been dragged back from death by a goddess with a cruel sense of poetry, who has spent 7 years watching him survive at the cost of his own truth, takes a shaking breath and tells him the thing that will break him. You become what the moon goddess locked away when she created the Alpha bloodline. Something older than pack law, older than civilization. A primordial wolf that can't distinguish between protect and destroy. Her voice drops lower, intimate, and terrible. Every blood moon, you transform. And everyone you love becomes a threat you have to eliminate. Shadrach's hand falls away from her throat. That's not possible. I would know. I would remember. That's the point, Saris cuts in. You're not supposed to remember. The ritual, the betrayal, the drugging, it's all designed to keep you unconscious through the transformation. To keep you contained until dawn, when you change back and forget everything. She glances at Vivian, still kneeling, still gripping that poison blade like her life depends on it. She's not your enemy. None of them are. They're trying to save you from yourself. The words hang in the air between them, heavy as stones. Shadrach looks at Vivian. Really looks at her. And Saris sees the moment understanding crashes over him, the pieces clicking into place, the pattern finally making sense. The strange gaps in his memory. The blood. The way his inner circle always seems tense during blood moons, always watching him too closely. The southern tower that's been reinforced every year with metals and chains and runes he never questioned. How many times? His voice is hollow. How many times have I? 7 blood moons, Saris says quietly. 7 times they've contained you. 7 times it's worked. And tonight, she meets his eyes, those dark, burning eyes that have haunted her through death and resurrection, and tells him the truth that will seal all their fates. Tonight is different. Tonight you remember me. And according to the moon goddess, that means the seal is breaking. That means containment won't work anymore. She pauses, letting that sink in. That means you have a choice to make, Shadrach. Let them drug you, lock you away, hope that the reinforced tower holds against something that's getting stronger every year. Or, the blood moon pulses overhead, brighter now, closer, like it's leaning in to hear her answer. Saris takes his hand. His palm is rough with calluses, warm with that impossible heat, and when their skin touches, she feels it. The bond that shouldn't exist, the connection forged in violence and guilt and the goddess's strange mercy. She holds on tight. Or you face it. You stay conscious. You let me help you remember everything, every moment of those 7 nights, and you figure out how to control it before it controls you. Her grip tightens. But I need to know you want to survive what comes next. Because once you remember, once you see what you're capable of, you can't unknow it. And some truths are heavy enough to break a man, even a king. For a long moment, Shadrach doesn't move. The entire pack is frozen around them, hundreds of witnesses to this impossible conversation, this shattering of 7 years of carefully maintained lies. The drums have stopped. The hymns have died. Even the wind has gone still, waiting for his answer. Then, slowly, Shadrach turns to Vivian. She's still on her knees, tears streaming down her perfect face now, her hands white-knuckled around the blade. How long have you known? His voice is gentle. Too gentle. The kind of gentle that comes right before something breaks forever. Vivian's mouth opens. Closes. Opens again. Since the beginning, she finally whispers. Your father told me. Before he died. He said it was my duty as your future mate to keep you safe. To keep the pack safe. From you. The last two words land like physical blows. Shadrach's jaw works. His eyes shimmer with something that might be tears or might be the red glow of his wolf pushing closer to the surface. When he speaks again, his voice is raw. You've been lying to me for 7 years. I've been saving you for 7 years, Vivian shoots back, and there's steel in her voice now, the strength that made her worthy of being an alpha's mate in the first place. Every blood moon, we staged a betrayal to give you something to focus on, something to fight, so you wouldn't notice when the drug took effect. We locked you away. We kept you alive. We protected the pack. And yes, we lied. We lied because the truth would have destroyed you. You don't get to decide that. Someone had to. The words echo across the courtyard, sharp and final. Shadrach looks down at Ceras's hand, still wrapped around his. Then he looks up at the blood moon, hanging swollen and red above them like a wound in the sky. She can see the war playing out across his face, the need to know warring with the desire to remain ignorant, the alpha's duty to protect his pack clashing with his right to know his own truth. When he finally speaks, his decision cracks through the night like thunder. Southern Tower. Now, everyone except Ceres and Darius leave. Chaos erupts. The pack starts moving, some rushing to obey, others frozen in shock or confusion. Vivian staggers to her feet, still clutching the blade, her eyes wild. Shadrach, no. You don't understand what you're. I understand, he cuts her off, his voice carrying the weight of absolute command, that I've been a prisoner in my own body for 7 years. I understand that everyone I trust has been lying to me. And I understand his eyes find Ceres again, burning with intensity, that this woman died trying to save me. Multiple times. And she's the only one who's ever told me the truth. He turns, pulling Ceres with him, and starts walking toward the southern tower. The crowd parts like water around them. Darius falls into step beside his alpha, silent and solid as stone, and Ceres catches the look the beta shoots her, part warning, part assessment, all alpha protectiveness wrapped in a body that could break her in half without trying. Behind them, Vivian screams. If you do this, if you stay conscious through the transformation, you'll kill her first. That's what the primordial wolf does. It goes for the biggest threat. And you just made her the biggest threat by choosing her over us. Shadrach doesn't stop walking. But his hand tightens around Ceres's, and she feels the tremor running through him, the fear he's trying so hard to bury under alpha bravado and righteous anger. She squeezes back. A silent promise. A reckless, impossible promise that she has no idea if she can keep. The southern tower looms ahead of them, built from stone so old it predates the pack, reinforced with chains and metal bars and runes that glow faintly in the moonlight. The door stands open, waiting. Inside, Ceres knows there's a cell. Bars thick as her wrist. Chains anchored into bedrock. A space designed to hold a monster. Tonight, it's going to hold a king learning to face his demons. Or it's going to hold his corpse. Ceres sends up a prayer to the moon goddess, the same goddess who resurrected her 7 times, who bound her memory to Shadrach's guilt, who set this whole terrible cycle in motion. The same goddess who, Ceres is starting to suspect, planned for this exact moment all along. If you're listening, she thinks fiercely, if this was your design all along, then help me save him. Help me save them all. The moon pulses overhead. Once. Twice. And somewhere in the back of Ceres's mind, in the place where death and divinity intersect, she swears she hears laughter. They step through the tower door together, and behind them, someone slams it shut with a finality that sounds like fate clicking into place. The blood moon rises higher. And deep inside Shadrach, something ancient opens its eyes. Before we continue, please subscribe to Cindy's Wolfheart Stories. And let us know where you are watching from. The inside of the southern tower smells like old magic and newer desperation. Ceres has been here before. 7 times before, to be precise. But always unconscious, always dragged in chains or carried over someone's shoulder while Shadrach thrashed in his cell, screaming words in a language that predates the pack itself. She's never been here awake. Never been here with him lucid, aware, terrifyingly present in a way that makes the stone walls feel smaller, the air thicker, charged with something that has nothing to do with the blood moon and everything to do with the way he's looking at her. Like she's a puzzle he's desperate to solve. Like she's the answer to questions he didn't know he was asking. The cell door stands open. Inside, chains dangle from the ceiling, thick and brutal, forged from metal that drinks in moonlight and turns it cold. Runes cover every surface, the walls, the floor, even the chains themselves, glowing symbols that pulse in time with Ceras's heartbeat. Or maybe with Shadrach's. It's hard to tell where one ends and the other begins when they're standing this close, when his hand is still wrapped around hers like he's afraid she'll disappear if he lets go. Maybe she will. The moon goddess has a dark sense of humor about these things. Darius closes the tower door behind them with a heavy thud that reverberates through Ceras's bones. The beta moves like violence wrapped in stillness, all coiled muscle and watchful eyes that track every breath Ceras takes. He doesn't trust her. She can read it in the set of his shoulders, the way his hand hovers near the knife at his belt. She doesn't blame him. If she were in his position, sworn to protect an alpha who's apparently been one bad night away from slaughtering his entire pack for 7 years, she wouldn't trust her either. Talk, Shadrach says, and his voice echoes off the stone in a way that makes the word feel less like a command and more like a plea. Tell me everything. From the beginning. Ceras pulls her hand from his, and the loss of contact feels like tearing skin. She moves deeper into the cell, her fingers trailing over the runes on the wall. They're warm under her touch, almost alive, humming with the kind of old magic that most wolves have forgotten exists. Protection runes. Binding runes. Runes designed to hold back something that shouldn't exist in the first place. The beginning, she says softly, is longer ago than you think. She turns to face him, and the red moonlight streaming through the single-barred window paints him in shades of crimson and shadow. He's taken off the ceremonial cloak, and underneath he's wearing simple black, his shirt open at the throat in a way that shows the thick cords of muscle, the pulse beating fast beneath tan skin. His hair is disheveled now, falling across his forehead, making him look younger, more vulnerable. More like the boy she met 7 years ago, before everything went wrong. The primordial wolf, Ceras begins, and the words taste ancient on her tongue, is what existed before the moon goddess created order. Before pack law. Before alphas and betas and the hierarchy that keeps wolves civilized. She pauses, gathering her thoughts, trying to find words for something that exists beyond language. It was chaos in wolf form. Pure instinct. Hunt, kill, protect, destroy, all of it happening at once, with no distinction between threat and family. Shadrach is listening so intently she can see the muscles in his jaw working, see the way his hands have curled into fists at his sides. The goddess locked it away, Ceras continues. Sealed it inside the bloodline of the first alphas, bound it with oaths and runes and the promise that as long as the alpha bloodlines remained pure, remained strong, the primordial would sleep. She meets his eyes. But nothing sleeps forever. Especially not when it's fed. Fed? Darius speaks for the first time, his voice rough as gravel. Fed on what? Ceras's laugh is bitter. Power. Dominance. Every time an alpha exerts their will, every time they force submission, every time they tap into that deep, primal authority that makes lesser wolves drop to their knees, they're feeding it. Waking it up. Bit by bit. The color drains from Shadrach's face. And the blood moon, he says slowly, working through it, acts like a catalyst. Ceras finishes. The moon pulls at everything, tides, instincts, magic. On a normal night, the seals hold. But during a blood moon, when the veil between worlds is thinnest, when magic runs strongest, she gestures at the runes surrounding them. The primordial wolf wakes. And it looks for threats. Anything that smells of betrayal, of danger, of challenge to its dominance. It eliminates those threats. Efficiently. Brutally. Silence falls, heavy as stones. Shadrach takes a step toward her, then another, until he's close enough that she can feel the heat radiating off him in waves. The fever is getting worse. She can see it in the flesh creeping up his neck, the way his pupils are dilating and contracting like his body can't decide whether to fight or flee. And you, he says, his voice dropping to something rough and raw, were one of those threats. It's not a question. But Saris answers anyway. I was a servant in your household. 17 years old. Invisible. I cleaned your chambers, brought you meals, emptied your chamber pot, all the things that highborn wolves don't notice because they're too busy being important. Her voice stays steady, even though the memories are clawing at her throat. But that night, 7 years ago, I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. I'd snuck into the southern tower to steal candles. Stupid, I know, but servants don't get luxuries, and I wanted light to read by, and I heard screaming. She can see it now as clearly as if it's happening again. The way the moonlight turned everything red. The way Shadrach's voice, distorted and human, had echoed through the tower. The way his inner circle had been dragging him toward the cell, and he'd been fighting them with a strength that shouldn't have been possible. I ran, Saris continues, her hands twisting together. But not toward the exit. Toward you. Because I thought, gods, I was so stupid, I thought you were in danger. I thought someone was hurting you. She laughs, but there's no humor in it. You broke free right as I reached you. You were already changing. Not into your wolf, into something else. Something with too many teeth and eyes that glowed like coals and claws that. Her voice breaks. Shadrach's hand comes up, hovering near her face, but not quite touching, like he's afraid contact will shatter her. I killed you, he whispers. You tore my throat out, Saris confirms, and the bluntness of it makes Darius inhale sharply. Fast. Efficient. Like I was nothing. Like I was just another threat to eliminate. She forces herself to hold Shadrach's gaze. But then you changed back. Faster than you should have. And you saw what you'd done. Saw me bleeding out on the stones. And you. The memory swims up, visceral and terrible. Shadrach, covered in her blood, his human face twisted with horror. Shadrach, screaming her name, Sparrow, Sparrow, no, even though they'd barely exchanged 10 words in all the months she'd served in his household. Shadrach, cradling her dying body and begging the moon goddess to take him instead. You begged the goddess to bring me back, Saris finishes quietly. You offered your life for mine. And Saris gestures at herself, at the impossible fact of her standing here, breathing alive. She took you up on it. Sort of. Sort of. Darius's voice is sharp with suspicion. Saris turns to him. The goddess resurrected me. But she bound my memory to his guilt. Every blood moon, I come back. Every blood moon, I remember everything, the 7 times I've died, the 7 times I've tried to warn him, the 7 times he's forgotten by morning. Her voice hardens. She made me his conscience, his witness, the one person who would carry the weight of what he becomes, since he's not allowed to remember it himself. Shadrach's voice cracks. That's cruel. That's the moon goddess, Saris cuts in. She doesn't deal in kindness. She deals in balance. Lessons. Survival. You wanted to save me? Fine. But you don't get to forget the cost. I carry it for you. She takes a breath. Until tonight. The air in the cell shifts. Tightens. Tonight is different, Shadrach says, and it's not a question. Tonight you remembered my nickname. Tonight the seal cracked enough that your mind could hold on to a piece of the truth. Saris moves closer, close enough that she has to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. Which means it's happening faster. The primordial is getting stronger. And soon, the seals won't hold at all, not even with the drugs and the chains and the runes. She watches understanding crash over his face like a wave. watches him process the implications that this containment is temporary, that eventually he'll become a threat his inner circle can't manage, that the choice isn't whether to face this, but when. How long, he asks, before it breaks through completely? Saris glances at the window, at the blood moon climbing higher, brighter. She can feel it pulling at something deep inside her, something that shouldn't exist, the place where death and resurrection have left her marked, changed, tied to magic she doesn't understand. Hours, she admits. Maybe less. The transformation usually starts around midnight. Right now she doesn't have a clock, but her body knows. Her body always knows. 10 o'clock. Maybe 10:30. Less than 2 hours. Less than 2 hours before Shadrach becomes something that will try to kill everyone in this room, starting with her. Darius moves then, positioning himself between Saris and the door, his body language screaming protection and threat in equal measure. Then we drug him now. Lock him down. Same protocol as always. No, Shadrach's voice cuts through the cell like a blade. That's not an option anymore. My king. If the seal is breaking, then eventually it won't matter how strong the drugs are, how thick the chains are. Eventually I'll break through while conscious, while aware. And when that happens, Shadrach's hands are shaking now, trembling with fear or fever or the first tremors of something worse. I need to learn to control it. Now, while I still have the chance. You don't even know if it can be controlled, Darius argues, and there's desperation in his voice now, the kind that comes from watching someone you're sworn to protect make a decision that might destroy them. This isn't like learning to harness your alpha power. This is the only choice that doesn't end with me eventually slaughtering everyone I love, Shadrach finishes, and the words land with brutal finality. Silence. Then Saris speaks, her voice soft but carrying. I can help. Both men turn to stare at her. You've died 7 times at his hands, Darius says slowly, like he's talking to someone who's lost their mind. And you want to help him learn to control the thing that killed you? Saris meets his gaze steadily. The moon goddess brought me back 7 times. She bound me to him. That's not random. That's not cruelty for cruelty's sake. She looks at Shadrach. She's been preparing me for this. Every death, I come back a little different. A little more. I can feel it, the magic she's woven into my resurrection. I'm not just a witness anymore. Then what are you? Shadrach asks, and there's something hungry in his voice, something desperate. Saris smiles, small and sad. I'm your anchor. The one thing the primordial wolf won't see as a threat, because my scent is written into its memory as already dead. Already conquered. Already, she has to force the word out. Already his. The temperature in the cell spikes. Shadrach closes the remaining distance between them in one long stride, and suddenly Saris is backed against the stone wall, his hands braced on either side of her head, caging her in. This close, she can see the red starting to bleed into his irises, can see the sweat beating on his forehead, can smell the wild, pine-sharp scent of him mixing with something ancient and dangerous. You're saying, he growls, and his voice is rougher now, deeper, like something else is speaking through him, that the monster inside me thinks you belong to it. Yes, the word comes out breathless. And you're going to use that to control it. Yes, that's insane. Probably. His eyes search hers, and she can see the war happening behind them, the man fighting to stay in control, the alpha trying to protect everyone including her, and underneath it all, something old and hungry stirring awake, tasting the air, recognizing the scent of the girl it killed. The girl it claimed. Why? Shadrach's voice breaks on the word. Why would you risk it? After everything I've done to you. Because you begged the goddess to save me, Saris interrupts, and she lifts one hand to press against his chest, feeling his heart hammering against her palm. Because you've spent 7 years having your memory stolen, your truth buried, living half a life so your pack could survive. Because her voice drops to a whisper. Because you called me Sparrow. And no one has called me that since my mother died. Something in Shadrach's expression cracks. His forehead drops to rest against hers, and the contact sends electricity racing down Saris's spine. They're breathing the same air now, his exhales becoming her inhales, the heat of him seeping into her skin like she's standing too close to a fire. If this goes wrong, he whispers against her lips, if I hurt you again, then the goddess will bring me back, Saris whispers back. She always does. That's not good enough. It's all we have. Outside, the blood moon climbs higher. Inside the cell, magic crackles through the runes, responding to the rising power, the approaching midnight, the moment when everything will change. Darius clears his throat, loud and pointed, and the spell breaks. Shadrach pulls back, putting space between them, and Saris can breathe again, properly breathe, not the shallow, desperate thing that's been happening since he got close. If we're doing this, Darius says, his voice hard, then we need a plan. Not just hope and desperation. He's right. Saris knows he's right. But hoping and desperation is all she has, combined with a gut instinct that the moon goddess didn't resurrect her 7 times just to watch her fail tonight. The transformation, Saris says, forcing herself to think clearly. Walk me through what normally happens. When does he change? How long does it last? What triggers it? Darius exchanges a look with Shadrach, then sighs. Around midnight, he starts getting aggressive. Paranoid. His wolf rises, but it's wrong. Distorted. The drugs usually kick in before it gets worse, knocking him out until dawn. He gestures at the chains. On the nights the drugs didn't work fast enough, we've had to restrain him. The primordial form as he struggles for words. It's not a wolf. It's not human. It's something in between and beyond. Fast. Strong. And it knows how to kill. Fantastic, Saris mutters. And the goal tonight is what exactly? Talk nicely to the ancient murder machine until it agrees to play well with others. The goal, Shadrach says, his voice steady despite everything, is to stay conscious. To face it. To see if there's any part of me that remains when it takes over. He looks at Saris. And to see if you're right. If having you here, if the primordial recognizing you, makes a difference. It's a terrible plan. It's barely even a plan. It's a hope wrapped in prayer and sealed with stubbornness. But it's all they have. The waiting is worse than the dying. Saris has learned this over 7 blood moons, 7 deaths, 7 resurrections where she wakes screaming with phantom pain in a throat that's always whole. The dying itself is fast, there's terror and pain, and then nothing. A clean break. But the waiting, the knowing what's coming, the watching Shadrach's humanity slip away piece by piece as midnight approaches, that's the torture that the moon goddess really excels at. They have an hour left. Maybe less. Shadrach is pacing the cell like a caged animal, his footsteps echoing off stone, his hands clenching and unclenching at his sides. Every few minutes he stops at the window, staring up at the blood moon like he's trying to will it back down below the horizon. It never works. The moon is relentless. Inevitable. Just like the thing stirring awake inside him. Darius has positioned himself by the door, arms crossed, expression grim. He's not said much since they established their plan, such as it is, but Saris can feel his disapproval radiating off him in waves. He thinks this is suicide. He's probably right. Saris sits on the cold stone floor, her back against the wall covered in runes that pulse in time with her heartbeat. Her dress, the same pale gray thing she's worn for 7 years, the same one she died in, is filthy now, streaked with dust from the tower, from pushing through the crowd, from this whole impossible night. She should be terrified. She is terrified. But underneath the fear, there's something else. Relief. Finally, someone knows the truth. Finally, she's not carrying this alone. Finally, Shadrach gets to face what he's been running from, even if it might kill them both. Tell me about yourself, Shadrach says suddenly, stopping his pacing to look at her. Not about the deaths. Not about the blood moons. You. Who were you before all this? The question catches her off guard. In 7 years, no one has asked her that. No one has treated her like a person instead of a ghost, a warning, a tool of divine punishment. I was no one, she says automatically, then winces at how it sounds. I mean, I was a servant. The invisible kind. My mother died when I was 12, fever took her. I didn't have any other family, so the pack took me in. Gave me work in the Alpha's household. Sparrow, Shadrach says softly, and the nickname still sounds strange in his voice, too intimate, too familiar. Your mother called you that. It's not a question. Somehow, impossibly, he remembers. Maybe it's the cracking seal. Maybe it's the bond forged in blood and guilt and resurrection. Maybe the moon goddess is allowing him to keep pieces of memory as some kind of twisted gift. Yes, Saris confirms, her throat tight. She said I was small and quick and always chirping questions. That I reminded her of the sparrows that nested in our roof. A sad smile crosses her face. I hated it when I was young. Thought it made me sound weak. But after she died, I would have given anything to hear her call me that again. How did I know it? The question hangs in the air between them. Saris pulls her knees to her chest, wrapping her arms around them. The first time you killed me, the first blood moon 7 years ago, you changed back while I was still dying. You held me. And I was delirious from blood loss, and I thought you were my mother, and I whispered, Mama, and you said, her voice catches. You said, I'm here, Sparrow. I'm here. You didn't even know why you said it. But when the goddess brought me back, and I came to warn you the next year, you'd forgotten everything. My name, my face, the murder. But somewhere deep down, that nickname stuck. Shadrach's jaw clenches so hard she can hear his teeth grind. Every year, Saris continues, her voice distant now, lost in memory, I come back during the blood moon ceremony. Every year I try to warn you. Sometimes I make it this far, to the tower, to you, and sometimes I don't. Sometimes Vivian and the others catch me first, drag me away, lock me somewhere until morning. She laughs bitterly. They think I'm delusional. A servant girl who died and had her mind broken by some trauma. They feel sorry for me in their way. They don't know that I remember everything. That I'm the only one who does. Why didn't you stay away? Darius asks, and there's genuine confusion in his voice. If you knew it was hopeless, knew you'd just die again, why keep coming back? Saris meets his eyes. Because the moon goddess doesn't give me a choice. At moonrise on every blood moon, I wake up in the forest outside the pack territory. And I just know that I have to get to Shadrach. That I have to warn him. That maybe this time will be different. She spreads her hands. I'm not autonomous. I'm a puppet on divine strings, dancing the same dance over and over, hoping the choreography changes. It changed tonight, Shadrach says quietly. Yes. Saris looks at him. Really looks at him. At the way his shirt is soaked with sweat now, clinging to the hard planes of his chest and shoulders. At the way his hands are trembling. At the red slowly consuming his irises like blood spreading through water. Tonight you remembered. Tonight the seal cracked. Tonight everything changes. She stands, her legs stiff from sitting on cold stone, and walks toward him. Each step feels significant, weighted, like she's crossing more than just physical distance. When she reaches him, she does something she's never done before. She touches him first. Her hand comes up to rest against his chest, feeling the wild hammer of his heart, the fever heat burning through his skin. He's shaking. This powerful, immortal Alpha King is shaking like a leaf in a storm, and something in Saris's chest cracks open at the sight of it. I was no one, she says again, but this time it sounds different. I was a servant girl who wanted to read books and see the world beyond pack territory and maybe fall in love with someone who saw me as more than just invisible hands that brought them food. Her other hand comes up, framing his face, forcing him to look at her. But the goddess made me into something else. Someone who's died 7 times and come back. Someone who's carried the weight of your guilt and your truth. Someone who's bound to you in ways I don't fully understand. Shadrach's hands come up to cover hers, his palms hot and rough. I don't want you bound to me, he whispers, and the anguish in his voice is raw enough to bleed. I don't want you dying for me. I don't want. Too late, Ceres cuts him off. The goddess doesn't care what we want. She cares about balance, about lessons, about forcing us to face the things we'd rather forget. She pulls his head down, resting her forehead against his like she did earlier, like this has become their way of grounding each other. So here's what I know about who I really am now. I'm the girl who refuses to let you face this alone. I'm the girl who's survived 7 impossible deaths. And I'm the girl who's going to help you survive what comes next, even if it kills me again. Ceres. Even if it kills me again, she repeats, firmer this time. The name sounds strange in her ears. She's been Sparrow in her head for so long, her mother's nickname, Shedrak's unknowing gift, that her real name feels foreign. But he says it with such reverence, such pain, that it becomes something new. Something that belongs to this moment, this night, this impossible situation they're locked into together. A tremor runs through Shedrak's body, strong enough that Ceres feels it against her palms. His eyes squeeze shut, and when they open again, there's more red than brown. The transformation is starting. Early. Too early. It's happening, Darius says, moving closer, his hand on his knife. Shedrak stumbles back from Ceres, putting distance between them, his chest heaving. Get out, he grits out through clenched teeth. Both of you. Get out now before. No. Ceres's voice is steady. She doesn't move toward him, but she doesn't retreat either. We're past that. No more running. No more hiding. You face it. I stay. That's how this works. Another tremor racks through him, harder this time. His spine arches, and Ceres hears the sickening crack of bones beginning to shift. Not into his wolf, into something else. Something that's making Darius reach for his knife, making the runes on the walls flare brighter, making every instinct in Ceres's body scream at her to run. She plants her feet and stays. Shedrak, she says, keeping her voice calm, level, like she's talking to a spooked horse instead of a man turning into a primordial nightmare. Stay with me. Stay in control. Remember who you are. His head snaps up, and the eyes that meet hers are no longer fully human. They're wolf eyes, but wrong, too bright, too intelligent, too ancient. Like something old and terrible is looking out at her through Shedrak's face. When he speaks, his voice is layered, Shedrak's voice underneath, but something else overlaid on top of it, something that makes the air vibrate. You should run, little sparrow. It's not a threat. It's a warning. The primordial wolf is waking up, and it recognizes her. Ceres takes a breath that feels like it might be her last for a while, and smiles, small and sad and unflinching. I've tried running, she says softly. It never works. So this time, I'm staying. This time, we're going to find out if you can control it. If we can survive this together. The thing wearing Shedrak's face tilts its head, studying her like she's a puzzle. And then it smiles back. It's not a nice smile. Midnight is coming. The blood moon hangs full and heavy outside the window, painting everything in shades of crimson and shadow. In the cell, magic crackles through the air like lightning before a storm. Darius has his knife drawn now, positioned between Ceres and his alpha, loyalty warring with self-preservation on his face. And Ceres, small, insignificant, invisible Ceres, who is supposed to be no one, stands her ground and prepares to do the impossible. She's going to reach into the darkness and pull her Alpha King back from the edge. Or die trying. Again. The transformation doesn't happen all at once. That's the cruelest part. It's not a clean shift from man to monster, not the smooth flow of bones and muscle that comes with a normal wolf change. This is fragmented. Broken. Like Shedrak is being torn apart and rebuilt by hands that can't quite remember the original design. His spine curves in ways that shouldn't be possible. His fingers elongate, then retract, then elongate again, claws sliding in and out of his nail beds with wet, tearing sounds that make Ceres's stomach turn. But his eyes, gods, his eyes are the worst part. They're still Shedrak's eyes. Still that deep brown that reminds her of rich earth and autumn leaves. But the red is bleeding through now, swirling like ink in water, and behind it all is something ancient watching her. Studying her. Remembering her. Talk to me, Sarah says, keeping her voice steady even though her heart is trying to punch through her ribs. Stay with me, Shadrach. Tell me what you're feeling. A growl rumbles through his chest, so deep she feels it in her bones. When he speaks, his voice is still layered, Shadrach fighting to stay in control, the primordial testing the boundaries of its prison. Pain, he grinds out. Everything hurts. It's like I'm being pulled apart from the inside. Two things trying to occupy the same space. That's because you are. Saris takes a careful step closer. Not close enough to touch, but close enough that he can see her clearly, focus on her. You're still you. The primordial is waking up, but you're still in there. You're still Alpha King Shadrach, who hates morning council meetings and secretly feeds scraps to the kitchen dogs when you think no one's watching. A flash of confusion crosses his face, the expression almost comically human on features that are starting to shift into something else entirely. How do you know about the dogs? I was a servant, remember? We see everything. She risks a small smile. Even watched you once, all dignified in your ceremonial robes, sneaking bacon to that three-legged mutt behind the stables. For just a moment, the red in his eyes recedes. Just a fraction. Just enough that Sarah sees it and knows he's still there. Still fighting. Then another convulsion hits him, violent enough that he goes to his knees. The sound that tears from his throat is neither human nor wolf. It's something primal and agonized that makes the runes on the walls pulse brighter, responding to the surge of ancient magic. Darius moves forward instinctively, but Saris throws out a hand to stop him. Don't, she says sharply. He's not lost yet. If you treat him like a threat, if you try to contain him like the enemy, you'll just trigger the primordial's instincts. He eyes a threat. Darius shoots back, his knife still drawn. Look at him. That's not your alpha anymore. He's both, Saris insists. That's the point. He's both, and we need him to learn how to be both without one destroying the other. On the ground, Shadrach's hands are pressed flat against the stone, his head bowed, shoulders heaving with each breath. His shirt has torn across the back where his spine is reshaping, revealing skin that's flushed fever-hot and marked with patterns that weren't there before, dark lines that look almost like runes, spreading across his shoulder blades like wings. Saris's breath catches. She's seen these marks before. Not on Shadrach, on the walls of the oldest part of the temple, the section that predates even the pack itself. Ancient symbols that the priestesses say belong to the first wolves, the ones who walked alongside the moon goddess before she bound them to laws and hierarchy and civilization. Shadrach, she says carefully, look at your hands. He lifts his head slowly, and the movement is both human and predatory, calculated in a way that makes her prey instincts scream. But he does it. He's still listening, still responding to her voice. His hands are changing. The fingers longer now, tipped with claws that are black as obsidian and curved like scythes. But it's not the claws that make Saris's heart skip, it's the marks appearing on his skin. The same dark runes that are spreading across his back, now crawling up his forearms, wrapping around his wrists like ancient shackles. Or like crowns. What? Shadrach's voice cracks. What's happening to me? Saris moves closer now, close enough that she can kneel beside him, close enough that she can see the runes pulsing in time with his heartbeat. Close enough that if he loses control, she won't have time to run. She doesn't run. The primordial wolf, she says softly, isn't just chaos. It's the original magic. The first power the goddess gave to wolves before she decided they needed rules. Her fingers hover over the marks on his arm, not quite touching, but close enough to feel the heat radiating from them. These marks, they're not corruption. They're awakening. Awakening to what? Darius demands from behind her. Saris doesn't take her eyes off Shadrach. To what he was always meant to be. Not just an alpha. Not just a king. Something older. something that exists between the human world and the wild. Shedrak's breathing is ragged, each inhale sounding like it's being dragged through broken glass. The prophecy, he rasps. My father, before he died, he said something about a prophecy. About the bloodline. He squeezes his eyes shut, fighting through pain and memory and the thing clawing its way to the surface. About the one who would either unite the wolves or destroy them all. The words fall into the silence like stones into a well, and Saris feels the weight of them settle over her skin. He thought it was metaphorical, Shedrak continues, his voice stronger now, like focusing on the memory is giving him something to anchor to. A warning to rule wisely. To balance strength with mercy. But it wasn't metaphorical, was it? No, Saris whispers. It wasn't. She sits back on her heels, her mind racing. 7 years. 7 blood moons. 7 times the goddess has brought her back, forced her to witness Shedrak's transformation, made her carry the weight of his forgotten violence. It wasn't random. It wasn't punishment. It was preparation. The moon goddess, Saris says slowly, working through it as she speaks, she didn't just resurrect me to torture us. She was teaching me. Every death, every resurrection, I came back different. Stronger. More connected to, she gestures at the space between them, the invisible bond that's been forming through blood and magic and repeated trauma. To you. To this. Shedrak's eyes snap to hers, and there's desperation in them now, human desperation cutting through the red. Connected how? Saris takes a breath. This is the part she's been avoiding, the truth she's been dancing around, because it sounds insane even in a world where she dies and resurrects every year. Every time you killed me, she says, a piece of your guilt, your magic, your essence, it stayed with me when I came back. The goddess bound us together. Not as mates, she sees Darius tense at the word. Not like that, but as two halves of the same impossible solution. Solution to what? To the fact that the primordial can't be destroyed, Saris says, and the truth of it rings through the cell like a bell. It's too old. Too fundamental. It's literally the foundation of what makes an alpha powerful. But it also can't be allowed to run wild, or it will tear apart everything the goddess built. She reaches out, finally, and presses her palm against Shedrak's chest, right over his hammering heart. So she created a balance. A wolf who carries the primordial power, and a sparrow who's been touched by death enough times that she can walk between worlds. Who can anchor you when you start to lose yourself? The marks on Shedrak's skin pulse brighter under her touch, and she feels it, the connection snapping into place like a key turning in a lock. Magic surges between them, old and wild and terrifying, and for a moment Saris sees everything. She sees the first wolves before the goddess bound them. She sees them running through forests that predate time, hunting and killing and living with a purity of purpose that civilization has stripped away. She sees the moment the goddess looked at them and decided they needed order, and the moment she sealed the wildest parts of them away, promising that one day, if the wolves proved themselves worthy, the seal would break and they would be trusted with their full power again. She sees Shedrak, not just the Shedrak, but all the Shedraks stretching back through his bloodline. Alpha after alpha, each one carrying a little more of the primordial, each generation bringing it closer to the surface. Building toward this moment. This night. This impossible choice between control and chaos. And she sees herself, small, insignificant sparrow, dying again and again, each death weaving another thread in the web the goddess has been spinning, building her into something that can survive standing in the eye of the storm. The vision breaks and Saris gasps, pulling her hand back like she's been burned. Shedrak is staring at her with wide eyes that are equal parts brown and red now, perfectly balanced on the knife's edge between human and other. You saw it, he says, and it's not a question. You saw what I saw. Yes. Her voice is shaky. The goddess, she's been planning this. All of it. The deaths, the resurrections, the breaking seal. We're not accidents. We're We're the test, Shadrach finishes, and there's awe in his voice mixed with terror. To see if an alpha can hold the primordial without it destroying him. To see if the old power can coexist with the new order. And I'm the anchor, Saris adds. The thing that keeps you tethered to humanity when the wolf wants to burn it all down. Darius makes a strangled sound. This is insane. You're talking about divine intervention, ancient prophecies, world-changing tests, and we're locked in a tower with less than an hour before midnight. He's right. The moon is climbing higher, brighter. The magic in the air is getting thicker, harder to breathe through. And Shadrach is losing the battle to hold his human form. Another convulsion hits him, harder than before, and this time when he throws his head back, the sound that comes out is definitely not human. The primordial is getting stronger. We need to move, Saris says suddenly, pushing to her feet. We can't do this here. What? Both men speak in unison. Saris spins to face Darius. The runes, the chains, the cell, they're all designed to contain him. To suppress the primordial. But if we're trying to help him control it instead of fight it, then keeping him in a cage is just going to make it worse. You want to let him out? Darius looks at her like she's lost her mind. In the middle of a transformation? When he could kill everyone in the pack. I want to take him somewhere sacred, Saris corrects. Somewhere the old magic is strong. Where the goddess can actually reach us if this goes wrong. She looks at Shadrach, who's watching her through eyes that are more wolf than man now. The temple. The old section where the first rituals happened. That's where we need to be. The temple is a mile from here, Darius argues. Through pack territory. Past hundreds of wolves who need to see this. Saris interrupts, and her voice carries a conviction she didn't know she possessed. If Shadrach is going to rule as what he's becoming, if he's going to be the alpha who bridges the old power and the new, then they need to see it happen. They need to witness the transformation and know that their king survived it. It's a terrible idea. It's dangerous and reckless and could end with dozens dead. But it's also the only idea that feels right. Shadrach rises slowly, unsteadily, his body still caught between forms. When he speaks, his voice is the layered thing again, but this time, there's more of him in it, more control. She's right. He looks at Darius, and despite everything, the claws, the marks, the red eyes, there's still command in his gaze. Still the alpha. Get me to the temple. If I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it in front of the goddess herself. Darius looks between them, and Saris can see the war happening on his face. Loyalty to his alpha. Fear of what that alpha is becoming. Duty to protect the pack. Faith, or lack thereof, in divine plans and impossible prophecies. Finally, he sheathes his knife. If you get us all killed, he says to Saris, I'm going to be very unhappy with you. If we all die, Saris points out, you won't be in any position to complain. Fair point. Darius moves to the door, pressing his ear against it. The pack will have gone home after the ceremony disruption. But there will still be guards. Patrols. And if anyone sees him like this, let them see, Shadrach says, and there's something fierce in his voice now, something that wasn't there before. Let them see their alpha fighting to be more than what fear would make me. Let them witness what the moon goddess has planned. He sounds like a king. Even with claws and marks and eyes that glow in the darkness, he sounds like a king who knows exactly what he's doing. Saris hopes he's right. Darius pulls the door open, and immediately the sounds of the night flood in. Somewhere in the distance, wolves are howling, whether in prayer or warning, it's impossible to tell. The blood moon's light spills through the doorway like liquid fire, painting everything in shades of crimson and shadow. Shadrach steps toward the door, then pauses, turning back to look at Saris. Stay close to me, he says, and his voice is soft despite the layers in it, intimate despite the danger. Whatever happens out there, stay close. Saris nods, moving to his side. When his hand reaches for hers, she takes it without hesitation, feeling the fever heat of him, the wrongness of his changed skin, the rightness of the connection pulsing between them. Together, They step out of the tower and into the blood moon's light. And somewhere in the heavens, Saris swears she feels the moon goddess smile. They make it exactly 300 yards before everything goes to hell. The pack territory is quieter than Saris expected. Most wolves have retreated to their homes after the disruption at the ceremony, uncertain and afraid, waiting for their alpha to emerge and tell them what to do. What they're not expecting is for their alpha to emerge like this, half-transformed, marked with ancient runes, eyes blazing red in the moonlight, walking hand in hand with the servant girl who interrupted the ceremony. The first guard who sees them goes pale. The second one reaches for his weapon. The third one drops to his knees. My king, the kneeling guard, a young wolf named Kalen who can't be more than 20, stammers, his eyes wide with terror and confusion. What's happening? Shadrach stops walking. Saris feels the tremor that runs through him, feels the primordial wolf rising to meet the challenge of armed guards and potential threats. His grip on her hand tightens, claws pricking her skin, not enough to draw blood, but enough to remind her how close he is to losing control. Stand down, Shadrach commands, and his voice carries across the courtyard with alpha power that makes every wolf in hearing distance flinch. No one raises a weapon. No one moves. I am going to the temple, and anyone who tries to stop me will answer for it when this night is done. The guards exchange glances. They're trained to protect, to contain threats, to maintain order. But they're also trained to obey their alpha without question. The conflict plays out across their faces like an open book. One of them, an older wolf with graying hair and 3 parallel scars across his cheek, steps forward, his posture careful, non-threatening. My king, the temple is where I need to be, Shadrach finishes. Clear a path, Garrick. Now. Garrick's jaw clenches, but he nods. Years of service went out over fear and confusion. He turns to the other guards. You heard your alpha. Clear the way. Send word ahead that the king is going to the temple and is not to be interfered with. The guards scatter, some moving ahead to clear the path, others fading back to spread the word. Within minutes, wolves are emerging from their homes, not to fight, but to watch, to witness. Word spreads like wildfire through the pack. The Alpha King is walking through the territory, transformed, changed, heading to the temple under the blood moon. They line the streets. Hundreds of them, standing silent in doorways and windows, their eyes reflecting the red moonlight, their expressions ranging from terror to awe to something that might be hope. Children clutch their parents' hands. Elderly wolves lean on canes, squinting into the darkness to see their king. Warriors stand ready, weapons sheathed but hands hovering near them, just in case. Saris feels their stares like physical weight. She's never been looked at like this, truly seen instead of overlooked. The invisible servant girl, suddenly at the center of the pack's attention, walking beside their transforming alpha like she has any right to be there. She lifts her chin and keeps walking. They're halfway to the temple when Vivian appears. She steps out from between 2 buildings, still wearing her ceremonial dress, her golden hair disheveled now, her perfect face streaked with tears. Behind her are the inner circle, the advisors, the elite warriors, the wolves who have spent 7 years orchestrating Shadrach's containment. Stop. Vivian's voice cracks across the street like a whip. Shadrach, please. Stop. Shadrach does stop, but his hand doesn't leave Saris's. The primordial stirs inside him, responding to Vivian's distress like a predator scenting wounded prey. His nostrils flare. His shoulders tense. The red in his eyes brightens. Vivian. His voice is strained, each word forced out through clenched teeth. Don't do this. Not now. You're making a mistake. She moves closer, her hands raised in supplication, her eyes desperate. The temple won't help you. The goddess won't help you. All you're doing is endangering everyone by staying conscious through the transformation. Let us help you. Let us do what we've always done. Lie to me. Shadrach's voice drops to a growl. Drug me? Lock me away and pretend I'm not becoming something you can't control. Yes! Vivian's composure finally cracks, and the word comes out as a sob. Yes, lie to you, drug you, whatever it takes to keep you alive. To keep the pack alive. Do you think I wanted this? Do you think I enjoyed spending 7 years loving a man who might kill me in his sleep? Who carries a monster inside him that would tear me apart without hesitation? The word loving hangs in the air between them. Saras feels Shadrach flinch, feels the guilt and confusion and pain radiating off him in waves. Vivian has been his fiancée for 7 years. She's been his partner in leadership, his companion, his anchor to the human world. And she's been lying to him every single day. Out of love. Out of duty. Out of fear. I never asked you to love me like this, Shadrach says, and his voice is softer now, threaded with regret. I never wanted you to sacrifice your truth for my protection. You didn't have to ask. Vivian's tears are falling freely now. That's what it means to stand beside an alpha. To carry the weight they can't. Her eyes cut to Saras, and there's fury there now, sharp as broken glass. But her? This servant girl who's died 7 times and keeps coming back like a curse? You're going to trust her over us? Over me? She's the only one who's ever told me the truth, Shadrach says simply. The words land like a slap. Vivian staggers back, and one of the advisors, an older woman named Talia with silver-streaked hair and eyes that miss nothing, catches her elbow to steady her. She's not trying to save you, Vivian says, her voice hard now, bitter. She's trying to make herself important. To insert herself into your life, because she was nobody before the goddess decided to use her as a divine messenger. She laughs, but there's no humor in it. Don't you see? She needs you. She needs this. Without it, she goes back to being invisible. Forgettable. Nothing. The words hit their target. Saras feels them like arrows, each one finding the soft places inside her that still believe she's just a servant girl playing at being significant. The places that whisper maybe Vivian is right, maybe she's just desperate to matter, maybe this connection to Shadrach is the only thing keeping her from being erased. But then Shadrach's hand tightens around hers. She's died 7 times for me, he says, and his voice cuts through Vivian's poison with absolute certainty. She didn't have to warn me tonight. She could have let the containment happen again, let me forget again, let herself fade back into whatever divine limbo the goddess keeps her in. But she didn't. She chose to tell me the truth even though it might get her killed again. He pulls Saras closer to his side. That's not someone trying to be important. That's someone who's already important and doesn't even know it yet. Saras's throat tightens. She doesn't trust her voice, so she doesn't speak. She just stands there, beside this impossible man who's becoming something impossible, and lets his words settle over her like armor. Vivian's face hardens. Then you're both fools. And when this night ends in blood and ash, when the primordial breaks free and slaughters everyone in that temple, don't say I didn't warn you. She turns and walks away, her ceremonial dress trailing behind her like a funeral shroud. The inner circle follows, some reluctantly, some with anger clear on their faces, all of them leaving their alpha to face whatever comes next without their protection. The crowd that's gathered murmurs. Shifts. The pack is divided now, Saras can feel it. Some believe in their alpha's choice. Some think he's making a fatal mistake. And some, like the young wolves in the back who are whispering among themselves, are simply terrified. A new voice cuts through the tension. If my Alpha King says he's going to the temple, then that's where we're going. Darius steps forward, positioning himself beside Shadrach and Saras, his massive frame a clear statement of loyalty. Behind him, other wolves move, the younger warriors, the ones who haven't spent years learning to fear the blood moon. They form a loose circle around their alpha, not restraining, just present. Supporting. Anyone else? Darius calls out, his voice carrying across the gathered wolves. Anyone else want to witness their king face his demons? Want to be there when history changes? For a long moment, no one moves. Then Kaelin, the young guard who first knelt, steps forward. Then Garrick, the older guard with the scars. Then a handful of others, some warriors, some civilians, some so young they're barely past their first shift. Not everyone. Maybe not even half. But enough. Enough that when Shadrach starts walking again, he doesn't walk alone. The procession moves through the packed territory like a slow-moving storm. The crowd grows as they walk, some joining, some simply following at a distance to watch, all of them drawn by this same impossible curiosity. What will happen when an alpha faces his demons? What will emerge from the temple when the blood moon reaches its peak? Will it be their king? Or will it be the monster? Saris doesn't have answers. She just keeps walking, her hand in Shadrach's, feeling the fever heat of him getting worse, feeling the tremors that shake through him with increasing frequency. He's fighting so hard to stay in control, to hold on to his humanity long enough to reach the temple. Every step is a battle. Every breath is a war. They're 3 blocks from the temple when the first attack comes. Not from wolves. From something else. The shadows between the buildings writhe and twist, and suddenly the air is thick with the scent of rot and old blood. Dark shapes pour into the street, not wolves, not fully formed, but something in between. Shadow beasts. The kind of things that exist in the spaces between reality and nightmare, drawn to strong magic like moths to flame. The primordial's awakening is calling to them. The crowd scatters, screaming. The warriors draw their weapons. And Shadrach. Shadrach lets go of Saris's hand. Run, he says, and his voice is barely human anymore. Get to the temple. I'll hold them off. No. Saris grabs his arm, her fingers digging into skin that's burning hot, marked with runes that are glowing bright enough to hurt her eyes. We do this together. That's the whole point. I'm your anchor, remember? So let me anchor you. The shadow beasts are closing in, their forms solidifying into something with too many teeth and not enough resemblance to anything that should exist. Darius and the warriors form a defensive line, but Saris can see the fear in their eyes. These things aren't natural. They're not something you can fight with claws and teeth and normal wolf strength. They're something that requires the old magic. The primordial magic. Shadrach looks at her, and in his eyes, those red and brown eyes that are caught between 2 worlds, she sees the question. The fear. The desperate need to protect everyone, including her. Saris answers by stepping closer, by pressing herself against his side, by wrapping her arms around him and holding on like she's done this 1,000 times before even though she hasn't. Let it out, she whispers. Let the primordial rise. But don't let go of me. As long as you can feel me, as long as you know I'm here, you won't lose yourself. Saris. Trust me, she says. Trust the goddess. Trust that she didn't resurrect me 7 times just to watch you tear me apart again. It's a terrible gamble. It's faith wrapped in hope and sealed with desperation. But when the first shadow beast lunges, when its claws come slicing through the air toward the crowd of wolves who don't have time to run, Shadrach stops fighting. He lets the primordial rise. And the world catches fire with ancient power. The transformation completes in a heartbeat. One moment, Shadrach is a man struggling to hold on to his humanity. The next, he's something else entirely bigger than a normal wolf, his form wreathed in shadows and red light, the runes on his skin blazing like brands, his eyes twin coals of primordial fury. The shadow beast doesn't stand a chance. Shadrach, the thing that was Shadrach, the thing that's both more and less than Shadrach, moves with impossible speed. His claws tear through the beast like it's made of smoke, dispersing it back into the darkness it came from. Then he's turning, finding the next threat, eliminating it with brutal efficiency. The crowd watches in stunned silence. Their Alpha King, the monster they've feared for 7 years, is protecting them. And through it all, Saris holds on. She feels the wild surge of the primordial's power, feels it trying to consume everything, to burn away all the softness and humanity and control. But she also feels Shadrach underneath it, still there, still fighting, still aware of the small human body pressed against his side. He doesn't attack the pack. He doesn't turn on Darius or the warriors or the civilians watching from doorways. He eliminates the threats, Then, with visible effort, with the kind of control that shouldn't be possible, he pulls the primordial back. Not all the way. Not back into sleep and forgetting. But enough. Enough that when he looks down at Saris, there's recognition in those burning eyes. He knows her. Even like this, he knows her. The temple, Saris says, her voice shaking but determined. We're almost there. Just a little farther. The primordial, or Shedrak, or the impossible fusion of both nods. And they start walking again, leaving the dispersed shadow beasts and the shocked crowd behind. The temple looms ahead, ancient and sacred, waiting. The temple is older than memory. Saris has been here before. Every servant is required to clean the sacred spaces once a month, scrubbing floors and polishing the ancient stones while the priestesses hum their prayers. But she's never been here like this. Never at night. Never during a blood moon. Never with the air crackling with magic so thick it feels like breathing underwater. And never with an alpha king who's half transformed into something ancient and powerful, his hand still wrapped around hers like she's the only thing keeping him tethered to the world. The temple doors stand open as if they've been waiting. As if the goddess herself has been expecting them. Inside, moonlight streams through the high windows, painting everything in shades of crimson and silver. The main hall is empty. The priestesses have wisely retreated when word spread about what was happening, but their absence makes the space feel even more sacred. More significant. Like the temple has been holding its breath, waiting for this moment. Shedrak stops just inside the threshold, and Saris feels the tremor that runs through him. Stronger this time. More violent. His grip on her hand tightens until his claws pierce her skin, drawing blood that falls in dark drops onto the ancient stone floor. The moment her blood touches the temple ground, the runes carved into the walls flare to life. Not the suppression runes from the tower. These are different. Older. They pulse with a light that's neither red nor silver, but something in between, something that predates the distinction between human and wolf, civilization and wild. The entire temple seems to wake up, humming with power that makes Saris's teeth ache and her bones vibrate. It knows, Shedrak says, his voice layered and rough. The temple knows what I'm becoming. It's been waiting, Saris corrects softly. Just like the goddess has been waiting. Just like I've been waiting. She looks down at her bleeding hand, at the way Shedrak's claws are embedded in her palm, and she doesn't pull away. 7 years. 7 blood moons. 7 times building to this moment. Behind them, Darius and the handful of wolves who followed closed the temple doors. The sound echoes through the sacred space like a final judgment. There's no going back now. Whatever happens here, whatever emerges from this night, it will change everything. Everyone out, Shedrak says suddenly, his voice carrying the weight of absolute command. Everyone except Saris. Now. Darius opens his mouth to protest, but something in Shedrak's expression, something wild and desperate and barely contained, makes him reconsider. He nods once, sharp and military, then begins herding the other wolves toward a side chamber where they can wait. Where they'll be safe if things go wrong. Where they won't have to watch their alpha fight for his humanity. The door to the side chamber closes, and suddenly it's just the two of them. Saris and Shedrak. Anchor and Storm. The girl who's died 7 times and the king who's killed her every time, standing in the heart of a temple that's watched over wolves since before history was written. Shedrak releases her hand carefully, his claws sliding out of her flesh with a wet sound that makes them both flinch. The wounds bleed freely, but Saris doesn't try to stop it. The blood feels significant somehow. Sacred. Like an offering the temple has been waiting for. I'm sorry, Shedrak says, staring at her bleeding palm with horror in his eyes that are more red than brown now, the transformation accelerating. I didn't mean to, I can't control. Stop. Saris steps closer, close enough that she has to tilt her head back to look at him properly. Close enough that she can see the war happening behind those burning eyes. Stop apologizing. Stop trying to be the perfect alpha who never hurts anyone, never loses control, never shows weakness. She reaches up with her bleeding hand and cups his face, leaving crimson streaks across his jaw. You're not perfect. You're not supposed to be. You're supposed to be real. Shedrak's breath hitches. His hands come up slowly, carefully, like he's afraid he'll break her and cover hers, pressing her palm against his face like he's trying to absorb her touch through his skin. I killed you, he whispers, and his voice cracks on the words. 7 times. 7 blood moons. I tore you apart, and you came back, and I did it again. How can you stand here and touch me like I'm not a monster? Because you're not, Saris says simply. You're a man with a monster inside him. There's a difference. Is there? The question is raw, desperate. Because right now, it doesn't feel like there's much of me left. It feels like the primordial is taking over, consuming everything, and soon there won't be anything of Shedrak remaining. The confession hangs between them, heavy with fear and vulnerability that an Alpha King should never show. But Shedrak isn't just an Alpha King anymore. He's something more. Something less. Something caught between worlds, fighting to hold onto his humanity while ancient power tries to burn it away. Saris makes a decision. She takes his hand, the one with claws that just pierced her skin, and guides it to her throat. To the place where, 7 years ago, those same claws opened her up and let her life pour out onto cold stone. Shedrak tries to pull away, but she holds firm. Feel that, she says softly. My pulse. My heartbeat. I'm alive. I'm here. Every time you killed me, the goddess brought me back. Because this, she presses his clawed hand more firmly against her throat. This wasn't punishment. It was prophecy. You and me, bound together through blood and death and resurrection, learning how to survive the impossible. I don't want to kill you again, Shedrak's voice breaks. I can't if I lose control, if the primordial takes over completely. Then don't lose control. Saris's voice is steady, certain. Hold on to me. Use our connection. The primordial recognizes me, remembers me. Use that recognition as your anchor. When you feel yourself slipping, when the wild wants to consume everything, feel my heartbeat. Remember that I'm real. That I'm here by choice, not because I have to be. Why? The question tears out of him. Why would you choose this? Choose me. And there it is. The real question. The one underneath all the fear and guilt and desperate control. Why would anyone choose to stand beside a monster? Why would anyone risk everything for someone who's already killed them 7 times? Saris takes a breath. This is the moment. The truth she's been avoiding because it terrifies her more than death ever could. Because, she says quietly, in 7 years of dying and coming back, the only time I felt truly alive was in those last moments before you killed me. When you were fighting to stay in control. When I saw you trying to protect me even while the primordial was tearing through your defenses. When you held me after and begged the goddess to save me. Her voice drops to a whisper. Because someone who fights that hard to not be a monster isn't a monster at all. He's just a man carrying an impossible burden. And I'm tired of watching you carry it alone. The words fall into the space between them like stones into still water, sending ripples through the magic saturating the air. Shedrak stares at her, and she watches something shift in his expression. The fear is still there, it will probably always be there, as long as the primordial lives inside him. But underneath it now is something else. Something that looks almost like hope. You're insane, he says, but there's no heat in it. Just wonder. Completely, impossibly insane. Probably, Saris agrees. But so are you. So we're well matched. A sound escapes him that might be a laugh or might be a sob. It's hard to tell with his voice layered like it is. But then he's pulling her closer, his arms wrapping around her with desperate care, holding her like she's made of glass, and he's afraid one wrong move will shatter her. I'm terrified, he admits against her hair. I'm terrified of what I'm becoming, of what I might do, of losing myself completely. I know. Saris's arms come up to wrap around him, feeling the fever heat of his skin through his torn shirt, feeling the tremors that shake through him with increasing frequency. But you're not alone anymore. You don't have to be the perfect alpha who carries everything by himself. You have me now. You have this connection. You have proof that even when you fail, even when the primordial wins, I come back. That's not good enough, Shadrach says fiercely. I don't want you coming back from death. I want you to not die in the first place. Then learn to control it. Saris pulls back just enough to look up at him. Use me as your anchor. When you feel the primordial rising, when you feel yourself losing control, find me. Feel my heartbeat. Remember that you're not just an ancient wolf trying to eliminate threats. You're Shadrach. You're the alpha who feeds scraps to three-legged dogs and hates morning council meetings and begged a goddess to save a servant girl you barely knew. Something in his expression softens. Cracks. Like she's found the exact right words to reach through the fear and touch something deeper. Sparrow, he whispers, and the nickname sounds like a prayer. Then he's kissing her. It's not gentle. It's desperate and fierce and tastes like fear and hope and ancient magic all mixed together. His lips are too hot, his teeth too sharp, his hands shaking where they cup her face. But underneath all of that is something achingly human, a man reaching for connection, for proof that he's still capable of tenderness, for something to hold on to while the world tries to tear him apart. Saris kisses him back with everything she has. 7 years of dying. 7 years of watching him suffer. 7 years of being bound to him through blood and magic and the goddess's strange mercy. All of it pours into this kiss, this moment, this impossible connection between a king and a sparrow. When they finally break apart, both breathing hard, the temple around them is blazing with light. The runes on the walls pulse in time with their heartbeats, and the magic in the air has shifted from suffocating to almost welcoming. Like the sacred space approves of what's happening. Like it's been waiting for this moment, for an alpha and his anchor to finally understand what they mean to each other. Whatever happens tonight, Shadrach says, resting his forehead against hers, whatever I become when midnight strikes, promise me you'll hold on. Promise me you won't let go. I promise, Saris whispers. I've survived 7 deaths. I can survive this. You shouldn't have to, but I will. She cups his face again, making him look at her. Because that's what it means to be your anchor. To hold you steady when everything else is trying to pull you apart. To remind you who you are when the wild makes you forget. Shadrach's eyes, red and brown swirling together like a storm, search hers for a long moment. Then he nods, and it feels like a vow. A promise. A commitment to fight with everything he has to stay in control, to not lose himself, to survive this night with his humanity intact. Or to die trying. Outside, the blood moon climbs higher, approaching its zenith. Inside the temple, magic thrums through the ancient stones, building toward something inevitable. Midnight is coming. The full transformation is coming. And when it does, they'll find out if this connection, this impossible bond between a man and the woman he's killed 7 times, is strong enough to hold back the darkness. Saris looks toward the deepest part of the temple, where the oldest stones are, where the first rituals were performed. We should go deeper, she says. To the heart of the temple, where the goddess's presence is strongest. Shadrach nods, taking her hand again, carefully this time, his claws retracted as much as they can be. Together they walk through the sacred space, past pillars carved with symbols neither of them can read, past altars that predate their grandparents' grandparents, past the threshold between the new temple and the old. The air changes as they cross into the ancient section. It's heavier here, thicker. Like they're walking through time itself, through layers of prayer and ritual and magic that have soaked into the very stones. The runes here don't just glow, they sing, a low humming that vibrates through Saris's bones and makes Shadrach's transformation marks flare brighter. At the center of the old temple is an altar. Simple, unadorned. Just a flat stone that's been worn smooth by centuries of offerings and prayers. Above it, through a gap in the ceiling, the blood moon shines down like a spotlight, like the goddess herself is watching. Waiting. "This is it," Saris says, and her voice echoes strangely in the ancient space. "This is where it happens." Shadrach looks at the altar, then at the moon, then at her. And in his eyes, she sees acceptance. Fear, yes, but also determination. Also trust. Also something that looks dangerously like love. "Then let's do this," he says. Together. They move to stand in the circle of moonlight, hand in hand, and wait for midnight to strike. Midnight comes like a predator. One moment, Saris is standing beside Shadrach in the temple's heart, feeling the ancient magic pulse around them. The next, everything changes. The blood moon reaches its zenith and Shadrach screams. It's not a human sound. It's not even a wolf sound. It's something primal and agonized that makes the very stones of the temple tremble. His back arches, his bones crack and reshape, and the transformation that's been building all night finally completes. The primordial wolf emerges in all its terrible glory. Saris has seen this before 7 times. She's watched Shadrach transform into something ancient and devastating. But never while conscious. Never while he was fighting to stay in control. And never with their connection blazing between them like a bridge made of blood and magic and desperate hope. The creature standing before her is massive. Easily 8 feet tall, caught between wolf and man and something that predates both. His form seems to shift in the moonlight, like her eyes can't quite focus on what he's become. The runes on his skin are burning now, so bright they cast shadows across the temple walls. His eyes are pure crimson, blazing with power that makes Saris's prey instincts scream at her to run. She doesn't run. She steps closer. "Shadrach," she says, keeping her voice steady even though her heart is trying to punch through her ribs. "I know you're in there. I know you can hear me." The primordial's head snaps toward her, and for a moment, just a moment, there's no recognition in those burning eyes. Just hunger. Just the calculating stare of a predator that's found prey. Then his nostrils flare, scenting her, and something changes. He knows her. Not as Shadrach knows her, with memory and emotion and human connection, but as the primordial knows her. As the thing he killed. The threat he eliminated. The scent that's been burned into his consciousness through 7 blood moons of violence. Already dead. Already conquered. Already his. The primordial takes a step toward her, and Saris holds her ground. She can feel him testing the boundaries of Shadrach's control, can feel the war happening inside that massive form. The beast wants to eliminate threats, wants to protect its territory, wants to hunt and kill and prove its dominance. But Shadrach is still there, still fighting, still holding onto the thread of connection between them like it's the only thing keeping him from drowning. "That's it," Saris says softly, extending her hand slowly, palm up, non-threatening. "You know me. You remember me. I'm not a threat. I'm your anchor. I'm the one who keeps coming back." The primordial's massive head tilts, studying her extended hand. Then, slowly, with visible effort that makes the runes on his skin pulse brighter, he reaches out. His clawed hand dwarfs hers, but when he touches her palm, his touch is careful. Controlled. Shadrach is still in there. Relief floods through Saris so strongly her knees almost buckle. It's working. The connection is holding. He's not lost. The temple doors explode inward. Saris spins and her heart sinks. Vivian stands in the doorway, and she's not alone. Behind her are dozens of wolves, the inner circle, the elite warriors, every wolf who spent the last 7 years protecting Shadrach by containing him. And they're armed. Not with normal weapons, but with chains inscribed with runes, with darts that probably contain enough wolfsbane to drop an alpha, with the kind of gear you bring when you're planning to subdue something dangerous. "Step away from him, Saris," Vivian commands, her voice ringing with authority. "Now." "No." Saris positions herself between the primordial and the armed wolves. He's in control. He hasn't hurt anyone. The connection is working. The connection is working now. Vivian cuts in, stepping forward. Her face is composed now, the tears and desperation from earlier replaced with cold determination. But midnight has just struck. The transformation is complete. How long do you think that control will last? An hour? 10 minutes? How long before he slips, before the primordial takes over completely, before he tears through everyone in this temple? That's not going to happen, Saris insists, but doubt creeps into her voice. Because Vivian has a point. They've survived the transformation, but the night isn't over. The blood moon will hang in the sky for hours yet. Hours of Shadrach fighting to maintain control over something that wants to burn the world down. You can't know that, Vivian says, and there's something almost gentle in her voice now. Like she's talking to a child who doesn't understand the danger they're in. You've been dead for most of his transformations. You don't know what he becomes when the primordial fully takes hold. But I do. I've spent 7 years watching, documenting, learning what he's capable of. She gestures at the armed wolves behind her. We all have. And we know that containment is the only option. Behind Saris, she hears the primordial growl. A low, rumbling sound that vibrates through the ancient stones. She feels the shift in the air, Shadrach's control wavering as his instincts identify the armed wolves as threats. As enemies that need to be eliminated. Don't, Saris says urgently, not sure if she's talking to Shadrach or Vivian or both. Don't provoke him. Don't give the primordial a reason to attack. But Vivian isn't listening. She's focused entirely on Shadrach, on the massive, terrifying form of the primordial wolf, and in her eyes, Saris sees something that makes her blood run cold. Fear. But also resignation. And underneath it all, love. Terrible, suffocating love that's been twisted into something dark by 7 years of lying and containing and pretending that everything was fine when it wasn't. I'm sorry, Vivian says, and she's not talking to Saris anymore. She's talking to Shadrach. I'm so sorry. But I can't watch you destroy yourself. I can't stand by and hope that some divine connection with a servant girl will be enough to contain what you're becoming. She raises her hand, and the warriors behind her ready their weapons. So I'm doing what I've always done. I'm protecting you from yourself, even if you hate me for it. Vivian, don't. But she's already giving the signal. The warriors attack. Not with killing force. They're too well trained for that, too loyal to actually harm their alpha. But with restraints. Chains inscribed with binding runes go flying through the air, wrapping around the primordial's limbs. Darts whistle past Saris's head, burying themselves in Shadrach's massive shoulders. More warriors pour in from the sides, coordinated and efficient, moving like they've practiced this 100 times. Because they have. 7 years of containing an Alpha King has made them very, very good at it. The primordial roars, and the sound is so loud it makes Saris's ears ring. She feels Shadrach's control slip, feels the beast surge forward as ancient instincts scream that he's under attack, that he needs to defend himself, that everyone here is a threat that needs to be eliminated. No. Saris lunges forward, grabbing onto one of the chains wrapped around Shadrach's arm. Stop. You're making it worse. He was in control, and now. A warrior grabs her, pulling her back, and Saris fights like a wildcat. She kicks and claws and bites, desperate to get back to Shadrach, desperate to maintain the connection that's the only thing keeping him tethered to his humanity. But there are too many of them. They drag her away from the primordial, away from Shadrach, away from the one thing that's been holding him together. And she watches, helpless, screaming, as more chains wrap around him, as more darts find their mark, as the coordinated efforts of dozens of well-trained wolves slowly, inevitably, bring the primordial to his knees. Through it all, Shadrach is fighting. Not against the chains, against himself. Saris can see it in the way his massive form trembles, in the way his claws retract even as every instinct screams at him to lash out. He's trying so hard to stay in control, to not hurt anyone, to prove that he can be trusted with this power. But the primordial is stronger, angrier, more desperate. And without Saris's anchor, without her touch, her voice, her presence keeping him grounded, he's losing the battle. One of the warriors gets too close. The primordial's claws lash out, purely defensive, purely instinct. The warrior goes down with a scream, blood blooming across his chest. The temple goes silent. Everyone freezes, warrior's inner circle, even Vivian. They stare at the fallen wolf, at the blood spreading across ancient stone, at the proof of what they've all been fearing. The primordial can't be controlled. The Alpha King is dangerous. The containment was necessary all along. No, Saris whispers, but the word is lost in the chaos as more warriors pile onto Shadrach, as more chains wrap around him, as someone, Talia, the silver-haired advisor, steps forward with a syringe filled with enough sedative to drop an elephant. Saris feels the exact moment Shadrach gives up. Not gives up fighting, he's still struggling against the chains, still trying not to hurt anyone. But gives up hope. Gives up believing that he can ever be more than a monster that needs to be contained. Gives up on the impossible dream that he could control the primordial, could bridge the gap between wild and civilized, could be the Alpha King who survives his demons instead of being destroyed by them. And that surrender, that loss of hope, is what breaks Saris's heart more than 7 deaths ever did. "You're wrong," she screams, still fighting against the warrior holding her. "You're all wrong. He was controlling it. He was succeeding. And you ruined it because you're too afraid to let him try." Vivian turns to look at her, and there are tears streaming down her perfect face now. "I hope you're right," she says quietly. "I hope I'm making a terrible mistake. But I can't gamble the lives of everyone in this pack on hope and prophecy and divine intervention." She nods to Talia, who steps forward with the syringe. "No." Saris's scream is raw, desperate. She tears free from the warrior holding her, doesn't know how, doesn't care, just knows she has to get to Shadrach before they take this away from him, before they steal his chance to prove he's more than what they fear. She's 3 steps away when someone else grabs her. Someone bigger. Stronger. Darius. He appeared from the side chamber where he'd been waiting with the other witnesses, and now he's got Saris in an iron grip that she can't break. She fights anyway, screaming Shadrach's name, begging him to hold on, to not give up, to remember that he's more than what they think he is. But the syringe finds its mark. Talia plunges it into the primordial's neck, and Saris watches as the sedative hits Shadrach's system. Watches as his struggles slow. As the blazing red in his eyes starts to dim. As the massive form of the primordial begins to shrink, to fade, to collapse back into something more human. As Shadrach, her Shadrach, the man who kissed her like she was precious, who held her like she was the only thing keeping him sane, slumps unconscious in his chains. The transformation reverses. Within moments, it's not the primordial wolf lying on the temple floor. It's just Shadrach. Naked, marked with runes that are fading now, breathing but unconscious. Vulnerable in a way that makes Saris's chest ache. Vivian kneels beside him, one hand on his face, and her expression is heartbroken. "I'm sorry," she whispers to his unconscious form. "I'm so sorry. But I can't lose you. Not like this." Saris stops fighting. Not because Darius's grip has gotten stronger, but because there's no point anymore. It's over. They've won or lost, depending on how you look at it. Shadrach is contained. The primordial is suppressed. Everything is back to how it's been for 7 years. Except it's not. Because this time, Shadrach was awake for it. This time, he'll remember. He'll remember that he was succeeding, that he was controlling the primordial, that he had hope for the first time in 7 years. And he'll remember that his own people, the wolves sworn to serve him, the woman promised to marry him, decided that wasn't enough. That he wasn't enough. That containment and fear would always win over trust and faith. The wound that will leave won't heal with sleep and forgetting. Warriors moved to carry Shadrach's unconscious body back to the southern tower. To lock him in the reinforced cell. To wait for dawn when he'll wake up human and broken and remembering everything. Darius finally releases Saris, and she stumbles forward, falling to her knees on the stone floor where Shadrach's blood has mixed with hers from earlier. The blood moon's light still streams through the opening above the altar, painting everything in crimson, and Saris thinks, wildly, bitterly, that it looks like a crime scene. Because maybe it is. Maybe what happened here tonight wasn't protection. Maybe it was murder. Not of Shadrach's body, but of his hope, his trust, his belief that he could be more than what fear demanded. Vivian stands, turning to face the gathered wolves. Her ceremonial dress is torn and dirty now, her golden hair disheveled, but she holds herself like a queen anyway. Like someone who's made the hard choice and will live with the consequences. Secure him in the tower, she commands. Double the chains. Triple the runes. When he wakes, we'll need to, her voice wavers slightly. We'll need to discuss what happens next. What happens next, Saris says, and her voice is cold as winter ice, is that you've destroyed him. Congratulations. Vivian flinches like she's been slapped. I saved him. You saved his body, Saris corrects, rising to her feet on shaking legs. But you killed the part of him that wanted to be saved. The part that was willing to fight, to change, to become something more than just a monster locked in a cage. And what would you have had me do? Vivian's composure cracks, anger bleeding through the grief. Let him lose control? Let the primordial slaughter everyone in this temple? Risk the entire pack on your untested theory about divine anchors and impossible connections? Yes, Saris says simply. Yes, because that's what faith is. That's what trust is. And without those things, all you have is fear. All you have is a king who's a prisoner. All you have is 7 more years of lying and drugging and pretending everything is fine when it's not. The words hang in the air and nobody moves. Nobody speaks. Even the wounded warrior has stopped groaning, like the weight of what's happened has silenced everyone. Then someone steps forward from the shadows near the temple entrance. A woman. Old. Ancient, really. Her skin is dark as rich soil, her hair white as moonlight, and her eyes glow with a light that has nothing to do with the blood moon overhead. The priestess. Not just any priestess, but the priestess. The one who's served the temple for longer than anyone can remember. The one who speaks with the moon goddess's voice. Everyone drops to their knees. Everyone except Saris, who's too numb to move, and the priestess herself, who walks through the kneeling wolves like they're not there. She stops in front of the altar, in the circle of red moonlight, and when she speaks, her voice is layered her own voice, but underneath it something older, something divine. You have failed the test, she says, and the words echo through the temple like thunder. Not completely, not irreversibly, but failed nonetheless. Vivian's head snaps up. What test? We contained him. We prevented disaster. You chose fear over faith, the priestess interrupts, and now her eyes are fixed on Vivian with an intensity that makes the beautiful blonde shrink back. You were given the opportunity to witness something miraculous, an alpha learning to hold the primordial without being destroyed by it. And instead of supporting that transformation, instead of trusting in the divine plan, you reverted to what you know. What feels safe? What's been done for 7 years? She turns, her gaze sweeping over all the wolves kneeling in the temple. All of you. You were given the chance to be part of something new. To help your alpha transcend his limits. To prove that the ancient power and the new order could coexist. Her voice drops, heavy with disappointment. And you chose chains over courage. He hurt someone, Talia speaks up, her voice defensive. The primordial attacked. The primordial defended, the priestess corrects sharply. When backed into a corner, when separated from his anchor, when treated as a threat instead of a king learning to command his power, yes, instinct took over. For a moment. One moment. After holding control for far longer than should have been possible. She shakes her head. And that one moment of self-defense became your excuse to do what you've been planning all along. To contain him. To keep him safe, yes, but also to keep him small. To keep him manageable. To keep him from becoming what he's meant to be. The silence that follows is damning. Saris finds her voice. What happens now? The priestess turns to her, and for the first time, there's something like approval in those glowing eyes. Now? Now we see if the Alpha King can survive one more betrayal, one more loss of faith, one more reason to believe that he's better off unconscious and forgetting. She walks to where Ceres is standing, reaching out to take her bleeding hand. The goddess brought you back 7 times, child. Built you into something strong enough to anchor a primordial wolf. Wove a connection between you and the Alpha that transcends death itself. She squeezes Ceres's hand gently. Do you still believe that connection is strong enough? Ceres doesn't hesitate. Yes. Even after this? Even knowing his own people chose containment over trust? Especially after this, Ceres says fiercely. Because now he'll need an anchor more than ever. Now he'll need someone who believes in him when everyone else has proven they don't. The priestess smiles, and it transforms her ancient face into something almost youthful. Good. Then you know what you must do. Ceres does know. It's insane. It's probably impossible. But it's also the only thing that makes sense. I have to bring him back, she says. Not just his body. His hope. His belief that he can be more than what they think he is. And how will you do that? Ceres looks at the temple doors where warriors are carrying Shadrach's unconscious body away. Looks at Vivian, who's watching with tears streaming down her face. Looks at all the wolves who chose fear, who chose safety, who chose the easy path of containment over the terrifying possibility of transformation. Then she looks back at the priestess, and her voice is steady. By being what they're not. By choosing faith when they choose fear. By standing beside him when they lock him away. By proving that the connection between us is stronger than 7 years of lies and drugs and chains. The priestess nods, satisfied. The goddess chose well. She releases Ceres's hand, turning to address the gathered wolves. You have until dawn. Until the Alpha King wakes. To decide what kind of pack you want to be. One that trusts in divine will and the strength of your Alpha? Or one that chooses safety over transformation, containment over courage? She walks toward the temple entrance, her form seeming to fade with each step until she's more moonlight than flesh. Just before she disappears entirely, she calls back one last pronouncement. The blood moon will rise again. The seal will continue breaking. And next time, if there is a next time, the goddess will not be so merciful. Then she's gone, leaving behind a temple full of wolves who suddenly understand that what happened tonight wasn't just about one Alpha King and his transformation. It was about all of them. And they failed. Dawn is still 3 hours away when Ceres walks into the southern tower. Nobody tries to stop her. The guards posted outside the door take one look at her face, at the dried blood on her hands, at the fury burning in her storm-cloud eyes, at the way she moves like she's walking through fire and doesn't care if it burns her, and they step aside. They know. Everyone knows by now. The servant girl who died 7 times. The anchor the goddess built. The woman their Alpha King kissed in the temple before his own people betrayed him. The door to the cell stands open. Inside, Shadrach sits chained to the wall, conscious now, his head bowed, his wrists raw from where the ruined manacles have burned into his skin. He's dressed in simple clothes someone brought, loose pants, no shirt, nothing that will restrict him if he transforms again. The runes carved into the walls are blazing bright, suppression magic so thick the air tastes like copper and ash. He doesn't look up when Ceres enters. You should go, he says, his voice flat. Empty. It's not safe here. Ceres closes the door behind her. The sound echoes through the cell like a judge's gavel. I've died 7 times at your hands. I think I can handle a conversation. That was before. Shadrach finally lifts his head, and the sight of his eyes makes Ceres's breath catch. They're brown again, fully brown, no trace of red, but there's something broken in them that wasn't there before. Before I knew what it felt like to have hope and then watch it die. The hope isn't dead, Ceres says, moving closer. The guards told her not to get within reach of him, warned her that even chained he could be dangerous, that the primordial could wake at any moment. She ignores all of it, walking right up to him until she's close enough to feel the heat still radiating from his skin. I'm still here, aren't I? You shouldn't be. Shadrach's chains rattle as he shifts, trying to put distance between them even though he has nowhere to go. They were right. Vivian, the inner circle, all of them. I'm too dangerous. The primordial is too strong. I hurt someone tonight, Saris. One of my own warriors. Because I couldn't control it. You hurt someone, Saris corrects, kneeling in front of him so she's at eye level, because they separated you from your anchor. Because they treated you like a threat instead of trusting the connection we'd built. Because fear won over faith. She reaches out slowly, giving him time to pull away, and cups his face with her blood-stained hands. That's not failure. That's them failing you. Shedrak's jaw clenches under her touch. Or maybe it's proof that I can't be trusted. That the primordial will always be stronger than whatever control I think I have. His voice drops to barely more than a whisper. Maybe I should stay chained. Maybe this is what I deserve. The words hit Saris like physical blows, and suddenly she understands. This is what Vivian's betrayal really did. Not just contained him. Not just took away his freedom. But convinced him that he doesn't deserve freedom. That he's better off as a prisoner than as a king learning to command his power. No, Saris says fiercely. Absolutely not. I did not die 7 times. Did not come back 7 times, did not stand in a temple and feel the goddess weave a connection between us, just to watch you give up now. I'm not giving up. I'm accepting reality. Reality. Saris's laugh is sharp, bitter. Reality is that you held control of the primordial for hours. Hours, Shedrak. You walked through packed territory, fought shadow beasts, stood in a temple with me while midnight struck and the transformation completed, and you stayed in control. You knew me. You chose not to hurt anyone. You proved that it's possible. She leans closer, making sure he can't look away from her. One moment of losing control when your own people attacked you doesn't erase all of that. It proves the control is fragile. Temporary. Not enough. Nothing is ever enough for people ruled by fear. Saris's voice rises, echoing off the stone walls. They could have watched you maintain control all night, and they still would have found a reason to chain you. Because that's what fear does. It looks for evidence that supports what it already believes, and ignores everything else. Shedrak is silent for a long moment, his eyes searching hers. So, what do you want me to do? Break these chains? Fight my way out? Prove I'm the monster they think I am? No. Saris sits back on her heels, and when she speaks again, her voice is calmer. Study. I want you to choose. Really choose. Not what Vivian wants. Not what the pack expects. Not what fear demands. But what you want. Who you want to be. I want, Shedrak's voice cracks. I want to not be afraid of myself. I want to not wake up every morning wondering if this is the day I finally lose control and destroy everything I love. I want to be the Alpha King who bridges the old power and the new order, who proves that the primordial doesn't have to be a curse. He stops, swallowing hard. I want what we almost had in the temple. That moment when I was both man and primordial, civilized and wild, controlled and powerful. When I could feel you anchoring me, keeping me human even while the ancient magic burned through my veins. Then choose that, Saris says simply. Choose to fight for it. Choose to prove that one moment of fear-driven betrayal doesn't define what's possible. How? The question is raw, desperate. I'm chained in a cell. The pack has decided I'm too dangerous. Vivian will never trust me to try again. How am I supposed to? The tower shakes. Not from an earthquake. From something else. Something that makes the suppression runes on the walls flicker and dim, that sends cracked spider webbing through the ancient stone, that feels like the very foundations of reality are being tested. Saris knows that feeling. She's felt it 7 times before, right before she died. The blood moon isn't finished with them yet. What's happening? Shedrak's eyes are wide, and she can see the red starting to creep back in around the edges. Saris moves to the window, looking out at the night sky. The blood moon hangs there, still full, still impossibly bright. But now there's something else. Shadows gathering at its edges, darkness bleeding into the crimson light like ink in water. And below, in the packed territory, chaos is erupting. More shadow beasts. Dozens of them. Hundreds maybe. pouring through the streets like a flood of darkness and claws and ancient hunger. She can hear the screams starting, can see wolves scrambling to defend their homes, their families, their territory. The primordial's awakening earlier attracted them. And now, with the blood moons still high and the barriers between worlds wearing thin, they're coming in force. They're attacking the pack, Sarah says, turning back to Shedrak. The shadow beasts. More than we saw before. More than normal warriors can handle. Shedrak lunges forward, and his chains snap taut with a sound like cracking bone. I have to, the pack needs, let me out. Please. They're going to die out there. I know. Saras looks at him, at this man who's been betrayed by his own people but still wants to protect them, who's been chained and drugged and told he's too dangerous, but can't stop being the alpha who puts his pack first. And that's exactly why you're going to break those chains. What? You heard me. Saras moves back to him, kneeling close. You're going to stop trying to suppress the primordial. Stop fighting against it. And you're going to embrace what you are, all of what you are, and you're going to save your pack. Saras, if I let the primordial out, if I lose control. You won't, she says with absolute certainty. Because I'm not leaving your side. Because our connection is stronger than these chains, stronger than their fear, stronger than anything except the magic the goddess herself wove between us. She takes his face in her hands again. Trust me. Trust yourself. Trust that you're more than what they think you are. For a long moment, Shedrak just stares at her. She can see the war happening behind his eyes, the fear of what he might become warring with the knowledge that his pack is dying while he sits chained in a cell. Then something shifts. Hardens. The Alpha King emerging through the broken man. If I do this, he says slowly, if I break free and transform, I'm not going back in chains. Not ever again. No matter what happens, no matter what they say, I'm done being contained. Good, Saras says. Because you were never meant to be a prisoner. You were meant to be a king who commands the wild and the civilized both. Shedrak nods once, sharp and decisive. Then he closes his eyes, and instead of fighting the primordial, instead of trying to suppress the ancient power burning through his veins, he opens himself to it. He lets it rise. The transformation is different this time. Faster. More fluid. Like now that he's not fighting against it, the primordial flows through him instead of tearing him apart. The chains resist, the runes flaring bright, trying to contain him, but the power building in Shedrak is older than any magic carved by mortal hands. The manacles shatter. The chains burst apart like they're made of paper. The suppression runes on the walls crack and go dark. And the primordial wolf rises in all its terrible, magnificent glory. But this time, Sarah sees something different in those burning red eyes. Not just the beast. Not just the ancient hunger and the killing instinct. But Shedrak. Still there. Still present. Still in control even as the transformation completes. He looks down at her, and when he speaks, his voice is that layered thing, man and primordial both, speaking in harmony. Stay close, he says, and it sounds like a vow. Saras takes his massive clawed hand in hers. Always. Together, they walk out of the cell. The guards stumble back, weapons half drawn, terror clear on their faces. But Shedrak doesn't attack. Doesn't even growl. He just looks at them with those burning eyes and says, calmly, clearly, with absolute authority, get the civilians to safety. Protect the young and the old. The warriors meet me at the eastern border. We have a pack to defend. The guards stare for a moment, too shocked to move. Then training kicks in. They salute, shaky, uncertain, but sincere, and run to carry out his orders. Because he's not a monster giving commands. He's their Alpha King. And he's done hiding what he is. Saras and Shedrak emerge from the tower into chaos. The pack territory is under full assault, shadow beasts everywhere, civilians running and screaming, warriors fighting desperately against things they're not equipped to handle. Buildings are burning. Blood stains the streets. And above it all, the blood moon watches like a crimson eye, waiting to see what happens next. Shedrak doesn't hesitate. He launches himself into the battle with a roar that shakes the very stones of the territory. The primordial's power unleashed, unfettered, under his control. He tears through shadow beasts like they're made of smoke, his claws and teeth finding vulnerable spots that normal wolves can't reach, his ancient magic disrupting the things that hold the beasts together. And through it all, Ceres runs beside him. Not fighting, she's no warrior, but anchoring. Her hand on his arm when the killing instinct gets too strong. Her voice in his ear when the primordial wants to see everything as a threat. Her heartbeat against his side, reminding him who he is, who he's protecting, why control matters. The warriors see it. Watch their alpha king, transformed into the thing they've feared for 7 years, protecting them instead of threatening them. Watch him fight beside them instead of being locked away from them. Watch the servant girl running with him, her small hand wrapped around his massive clawed one, keeping him tethered to humanity even while ancient power flows through him. And slowly, gradually, they start to understand. This isn't a monster that needs to be contained. This is power that needs to be trusted. Vivian appears at the edge of the battle, still in her torn ceremonial dress, her face streaked with soot and tears. She watches Shadrach, her betrothed, the man she's spent 7 years protecting through lies and chains, fighting with the full force of what he is. Saving the pack not despite the primordial, but because of it. Their eyes meet across the battlefield. And in that moment, Sarah sees understanding dawn on Vivian's beautiful face. Sees her realize what her betrayal really cost. Not Shadrach's safety, but his growth. His evolution. His chance to be more than what fear demanded. The battle rages for what feels like hours, but is probably only minutes. Shadrach and the warriors working together, coordinated and fierce, driving back the shadow beasts until the creatures realize they're outmatched and retreat back into whatever darkness spawned them. The last beast falls, dispersing into smoke and shadows. Silence descends. The pack territory is damaged, bloodied, but standing. And in the center of it all, wreathed in the red light of the blood moon, stands their alpha king. Still transformed. Still powerful. Still very much in control. Shadrach's massive form turns slowly, his burning eyes sweeping over the gathered wolves. Warriors. Civilians. The inner circle. Vivian. All of them watching, waiting, wondering what happens next. When he speaks, his layered voice carries to every corner of the territory. I am your Alpha King. I carry the primordial, the old magic, the wild power that the moon goddess sealed away centuries ago. For 7 years, you feared that power. Contained it. Locked it away and pretended it didn't exist. He pauses, and the red in his eyes pulses brighter. Tonight, you tried to do it again. Even when I was proving I could control it. Even when I was showing you that the old power and the new order could coexist. The crowd shifts uneasily. Some wolves drop their eyes in shame. Others look defiant, still convinced they did the right thing. Shadrach continues. But the goddess doesn't give power without purpose. She didn't break the seal just to test me. She broke it to show you, to show all of us, that we've been living half-lives. That by suppressing the wild, by fearing the ancient magic, by choosing safety over transformation, we've been denying what makes us truly strong. He looks down at Ceres, still standing beside him, her hand in his. This woman has died 7 times for me. The goddess bound us together, man and sparrow, alpha and anchor, power and control. Not as punishment, as prophecy. As proof that we don't have to choose between the wild and the civilized. We can be both. Ceres feels every eye in the territory shift to her. The invisible servant girl, suddenly at the center of divine purpose. She wants to shrink back, to disappear into the shadows like she's done her whole life. Instead, she lifts her chin and stands taller. I don't know what the future holds, Shadrach says, his voice dropping to something almost gentle despite the layers in it. I don't know if the pack will ever fully trust me with this power. But I know this. I'm done being contained. I'm done pretending I'm not what I am. I'm done letting fear dictate what's possible. His eyes find Vivian in the crowd. Even if it means ruling alone. The words land like stones in still water. Vivian takes a step forward, then another, until she's standing before Shedrak's massive transformed form. Up close, she looks tiny, fragile, human in a way that makes the contrast with the primordial stark and unavoidable. You're right, she says, and her voice is steady despite the tears streaming down her face. I was afraid. I am afraid. Watching you transform, knowing what you could become, what you could do, it terrifies me. She takes a shaking breath. But tonight, watching you fight for the pack while I stood on the sidelines, watching you prove that control is possible while I clung to containment, I realized something. What? Shedrak's voice is soft. I was so busy trying to save you that I forgot to trust you. Vivian's composure finally cracks, sobs breaking through her words. I forgot that you're not just my burden to carry. You're the Alpha King. You're stronger than my fear. And by trying to protect you, I nearly destroyed the very thing that makes you worthy of being protected. She drops to her knees, and it's not submission, it's supplication. It's an apology written in the language of wolves, offering her throat to the Alpha she failed. I release you from our betrothal, Vivian says. Not because I don't love you, but because the kind of love that chains and contains isn't love at all. It's fear wearing love's mask. She looks at Saris, and there's no anger in her eyes now. Just exhausted acceptance. She's your anchor. Your balance. The one the goddess chose. And I was just the one who wasn't brave enough to let you become what you're meant to be. The pack is silent, watching this impossible moment. Their future queen releasing their king. The woman who spent 7 years protecting him through lies, finally choosing truth. Shedrak's massive head bows, and when he speaks, there's grief in his layered voice. You did what you thought was right. What you were taught to do. My father, he put that burden on you, told you it was your duty to contain me. That's not fair to blame you for. But I kept doing it even when I knew better, Vivian says. Even tonight, when I saw you controlling the primordial, I chose fear. That's on me. Not your father. Me. The truth of it hangs in the air, heavy and undeniable. Then Shedrak does something unexpected. He transforms. Not back to fully human, but to something in between. The massive primordial form shrinking, reshaping, until he's standing on 2 legs, still marked with glowing runes, still with claws and power burning in his eyes, but recognizably Shedrak again. He offers Vivian his hand carefully, claws retracted, and helps her to her feet. Thank you, he says simply. For 7 years of trying. For caring enough to lie. For loving me the best way you knew how. He squeezes her hand once, gently. And for finally being brave enough to let me go. Vivian nods, unable to speak, and steps back into the crowd. She's released him. Released herself. And now both of them can finally breathe. Shedrak turns to Saris, and the look in his eyes makes her heart skip. It's the look she saw in the temple right before they kissed. But deeper now. More certain. Tempered by betrayal and battle and the choice to trust in impossible things. The goddess gave me power, he says, loud enough for everyone to hear. But she gave me you to make sure I use it wisely. To anchor me when the wild wants to consume everything. To remind me who I am when the primordial makes me forget. He pulls her closer, and despite his partially transformed state, despite the claws and the power and the ancient magic burning through him, his touch is gentle. So I'm asking, in front of the pack, in front of the moon goddess herself, will you stand beside me? Not as a betrothed bound by duty, but as my anchor, my balance, my chosen partner in ruling this pack and bridging the old power with the new. The question hangs in the air, massive and world-changing. Saris looks at him, at this impossible man who's becoming something impossible, who's choosing trust over fear, who's asking a servant girl to stand beside him as his equal. She thinks about 7 deaths. 7 resurrections. 7 times the goddess brought her back for this exact moment. And she smiles, small and fierce and absolutely certain. Yes, she says. Always yes. The pack erupts. Not in protest, in something that might be relief, might be hope, might be the sound of wolves finally understanding that their alpha king isn't just surviving his demons. He's learning to command them. The blood moon begins to set, its crimson light fading to pink, then gold, then gone. Dawn is coming. The night of transformation is ending. And when the sun rises, the Shadow Pine pack will be different than it was. They'll have an alpha king who's both wild and civilized, ancient and new. And they'll have a sparrow who chose to anchor a storm. The sun breaks over the horizon like a promise. Sarah stands beside Shedrak on the temple steps, watching the pack territory slowly wake up. Warriors are already working to repair the damage from the shadow beast attack, fixing broken doors, clearing debris, tending to the wounded. There's work to be done. There always is after a night like this. But there's also something new in the air. Hope. Not the fragile, desperate kind they had before, but something stronger. Something built on proof instead of prayer, on trust instead of containment, on the understanding that power doesn't have to be feared if it's properly understood. Shedrak is fully human now, the transformation reversed with the setting of the blood moon. But the runes on his skin remain, faded but visible, a permanent reminder of what he carries, what he is, what he's learning to command instead of suppress. He looks different in the morning light. Older, maybe. More certain. Like accepting the primordial instead of fighting it has settled something deep inside him. What happens now? Saris asks, her hand still wrapped in his. Shedrak is quiet for a moment, watching his pack rebuild. Now we figure out what it means to rule like this. To be an alpha king who carries the old power. To bridge the gap between what we were and what we're becoming. He looks down at her. With you beside me, reminding me who I am when I start to forget. That's a lot of responsibility for a servant girl, Saris points out, but she's smiling. Former servant girl, Shedrak corrects. You're not invisible anymore, Sparrow. The pack saw what you did last night. Saw you run beside the primordial without fear. Saw you anchor me when everyone else chose chains. His thumb brushes over her knuckles. You're the woman the moon goddess built to stand beside me. That's not nothing. Saris thinks about that. About who she was, invisible, insignificant, just another servant cleaning floors and emptying chamber pots. And who she is now, the anchor to an alpha king, the woman who's died 7 times and survived, the living proof that trust is stronger than fear. The transformation isn't just Shedrak's. It's hers too. The pack will struggle with this, she says quietly. Some of them will always fear what you are. Will always wonder if containment was the better choice. I know, Shedrak doesn't sound worried. Just realistic. But that's their journey to make. Their choice about whether to trust or fear, whether to believe in transformation or cling to safety. He turns to face her fully, both hands coming up to cup her face. I've made my choice. I choose trust. I choose you. I choose to be what I am, all of what I am, and to rule this pack without apology. The conviction in his voice sends warmth spreading through Saris's chest. This is what victory looks like. Not perfect. Not without complications or fear or the hard work of rebuilding trust. But real. Earned through battle and betrayal and the choice to stand up after being knocked down. The next blood moon will come, Saris says. The primordial will rise again. And I'll be ready, Shedrak promises. We'll be ready. Together. Together. The word feels like a vow. Like a thread connecting past and future, deaths and resurrections. The girl who is nobody and the woman who chose to anchor a storm. Behind them, the temple doors open. The ancient priestess steps out, her eyes no longer glowing with divine light, but still wise, still knowing. She looks at them, at the Alpha King and his anchor, at the man and the sparrow, at the impossible pair the moon goddess built through 7 years of deaths and resurrections. And she smiles. The test is not over, she says, her voice carrying the weight of prophecy. The seal on the primordial is broken. Each blood moon will bring new challenges, new choices, New chances to prove whether trust is stronger than fear, whether transformation is possible, whether an alpha can truly command both the wild and the civilized. We know, Shadrach says steadily. But you passed the first test, the priestess continues. Not perfectly, not without pain, but you passed. You chose faith when fear was easier. You chose trust when containment was safer. You chose to become what you were meant to be instead of remaining what you were taught to fear. Her eyes shift to Saris. Both of you. The words settle over them like a blessing, like recognition from the goddess herself that what they've built here, this impossible partnership, this anchor and storm, this balance between power and control, is exactly what was meant to be. What do we do now? Saris asks. The priestess's smile widens. Now you live. You rule. You face whatever comes next together. And you show the wolf world that the old magic doesn't have to be feared. It can be commanded, balanced, trusted. She turns to walk back into the temple, calling over her shoulder. The goddess chose well. Don't disappoint her. Then she's gone, leaving them standing in the morning sun, hands clasped, facing a future that's uncertain but no longer terrifying. Because they're not facing it alone. Saris looks up at Shadrach, at this man who's killed her 7 times and begged for her resurrection every time, who's learning to be more than what fear demands, who chose her insignificant, invisible her, to stand beside him. Do you think it'll work? She asks. This whole bridging 2 worlds, commanding ancient power, ruling without fear thing? Shadrach pulls her close, resting his forehead against hers in the gesture that's become theirs. I don't know, he admits. But I know we're going to try. And I know that's more than we had yesterday. More than we had an hour ago, Saris adds with a small laugh. Exactly. They stand there as the sun climbs higher, as the pack continues rebuilding, as the world slowly shifts from night to day, from fear to hope, from what was to what could be. The blood moon will rise again. The primordial will test Shadrach's control again. There will be more battles, more betrayals, more moments where fear tries to win over faith. But they'll face it together. The Alpha King who commands both wild and civilized. And the sparrow who chose to anchor a storm. Would you have chosen her path? Would you have stood beside him when everyone else chose chains? Would you have looked at ancient power and seen possibility instead of threat? Would you have trusted in divine prophecy and impossible connections when every instinct screamed to run? Or would you have been like Vivian, loving but afraid, protecting but containing, choosing safety over the terrifying beauty of transformation? There's no wrong answer. Fear is human. Protection is love. But so is trust. So is faith in the impossible. So is the choice to stand beside someone when they're becoming more than what the world thinks they should be. Saris chose faith over fear. Shadrach chose trust over containment. And together, they're proving that sometimes the monsters we fear are just people carrying impossible burdens, waiting for someone brave enough to help them carry it. If this story lit something inside you, if you found yourself holding your breath during the temple scene, if you wanted to scream when Vivian ordered the attack, if you felt that electric moment when Saris and Shadrach kissed despite everything, then subscribe to Cindy's Wolfheart Stories. Because here, we don't tell simple love stories. We tell stories about the choice between fear and faith. About partners who anchor each other through impossible transformations. About divine prophecies written in blood and resurrection. About servant girls who become queens and kings who learn to command their demons instead of being destroyed by them. We tell stories that ask, who would you be when the blood moon rises? Hit that subscribe button. Because next time the moon turns red, you're going to want to know what happens when trust is tested, when ancient power demands to be acknowledged, when a sparrow and a storm face whatever the goddess throws at them next. This is just the beginning of Shadrach and Saris's story. And you don't want to miss what comes after the first blood moon. Subscribe. Stay. Witness what happens when faith wins over fear. Welcome to Cindy's Wolfheart Stories, where every tale burns bright enough to light the darkness.